So maybe just bring it up.
Mostly applied to music and television is anything that they can do and generate and not hold taxes their word. So they put fees on everything.
That was complicated stuff.
It was laid out. If it was laid out, it wouldn't have been.
I mean, I'm not gonna say that. You didn't hear me say it.
No, I didn't hear it.
By then.
Fee is an award for tax. And why we don't have to pay it, I'm not gonna get you. Reserves.
But the money that
Required to pay.
Okay, we have a public hearing, for the bed tax law. Anyone wishing to speak regarding that? Yeah.
Notice of public hearing. Notice is hereby given that there has been duly introduced before the Board of Representatives of the County of Otsego, New York, a local law entitled, "A Local Law Amending Local Law 2 of 2015, imposing a tax on the occupancy of certain hotel, motel, and similar rural rooms in Otsego County." Notice is further given that the Board of Representatives will conduct a public hearing on the proposed local law in the Representatives' Chambers at the County Office Building in the Village of Cooperstown, New York, on Wednesday, March 7, 2018, at 10 a.m., at which time all persons interested will be heard. The location of the public hearing is accessible to persons with mobility impairment. Copies of the local law are available for viewing at the Clerk of the Board's office, County Office Building, Cooperstown, New York, during regular business hours. Dated March 1st, 2018, Carol D. McGovern, Clerk of the Board of Representatives, Otsego County, New York.
Anyone wishing to speak?
Oh, yeah.
This is for the bed tax.
Oh, no.
All right, hearing none, I'll motion to close the hearing. Hearing's closed. Call the order of the regular meeting. Roll call of members.
Frazier?
Here.
Farwell? Here. Clark? Here. Stammel?
Here.
Kennedy? Here. Overacker?
Here.
Bliss?
Here.
Marietta?
Here.
McCarty?
Here.
Wilbur?
Here.
Kootnick?
Here.
Martini? Here. Lappin?
Here.
Shannon? Here.
Pledge allegiance, please rise. Pledge allegiance.
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Privilege of the floor. Please rise and state your name and address.
Yeah, my name is Edward Doyle. I live in the hamlet of Welcome in the town of New Lisbon. A couple issues I just wanted to bring up. I don't know if it actually applies to the county board, but the board members could possibly have some sway that way regarding the schools and everything, what's going on nowadays. I mean, the biggest thing, I think, that'll be the least burden on the taxpayers, possibly it'd be like metal detectors or something of that nature. They're looking to put resource officers in. Ask the sheriff's department, what's the first thing if they're responding to an active encounter anywhere? Try to hold down and get backup. They don't go after somebody on their own. Now they're trained professionals. Now a school resource officer with 2 hours, 3 hours worth of instruction, are they going to do that? You know, we've seen what happened with that down in Florida. I mean, you've got to address this in a common sense perspective. What was mentioned was possibly teachers, you know, being armed. I partly agree with it and I partly don't. The whole thing, how many teachers, what I would look to the factor, how many teachers are prior military personnel? Do they know how to handle a firearm? Would they want to handle a firearm? That's the big question. How many were former police officers or law enforcement officers? I mean, you gotta reach out there, there's probably a lot of them. What would you have too? Otherwise, you got a superintendent in every single school. Why we have that, I don't know, that's a big expense on the taxpayers. You need maybe 2 superintendents for the whole county. They should be able to handle every single school district. But, you know, that's neither here nor there. The biggest thing though, the supervisor and the principal. Why not give them proper training? They could be armed and they could respond to a situation. They're already there and it's not throwing the extra burden on us taxpayers. School taxes are high enough already, I'm sure everybody in the room is aware of that. Hopefully maybe you could put a little sway to that. The other issue I wanted to bring up is about the county manager or whatever terminology that they want to use for this. I mean, the county board, everything comes down to the county board anyhow. Why do we have a county board? You have supervisors in all of the various departments. They run the show, so to speak, but the county board is the one that authorizes the spending and watches the pocketbook and keeps everything on track. Do we really need another tier added on to what is working and has been working for God knows how many years? Do we really need this? And throwing that on the backs of the taxpayers, once again. What I think an easy way, maybe an approach that I looked at and I came up with, I don't know if it's workable or not, to look at a business or look at a county or look at state government or anything. Look at it like a pyramid. Whoever's on the top. Now you need a lot of Indians on the bottom to keep the operation running properly. They're the ones doing all of the daily work on a daily basis, doing all the running around and making things happen. What happens is that you start to get too top heavy. That's adding to the taxpayer's burden, which is the realm of New York State. I know, you know, with the unfunded mandates and everything that's brought about to the county, that's a crisis in the making right there, you know. I mean, the county would be doing a lot better if the governor wasn't tooting his horn like he is all the time, and you had the proper appropriations. Because like I brought out a number of years ago, just go back 40 years. I mean, has the population increased, decreased, or remained the same? And has the amount of county employees increased, decreased, or remained the same? We're losing population and we're increasing with employees. What's wrong with the picture? Business can't operate in that capacity. Sooner or later, you start running out of funds because you're chasing people out more and more. I thank you for your time.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Good morning, everyone, on this beautiful winter day. My name is Maria Agello. I'm an employee, and I lived at 104 Filburn Road in Ridgefield. First and foremost, Mr. Bliss, thank you for closing the building on Friday during Winter Storm Riley. You kept us all safe and sound. The highwaymen, God bless you for the work you do. Now, I am here for my home. I don't understand why the treasurer had sole discretion. No resolution stated we don't need to by law, but for years you would do that even though it wasn't required by law. Everyone knew. The board voted. Everyone knew how the board really stood on an issue. So I ask you for the return of my home, my acreage, with the back taxes, penalties, fines, and whatever else you want to put on it. I came and I was refused. Now, my second issue is the county manager. Ladies and gentlemen, I read in the paper that you thought you might need a professional. You are the professionals. This is not amateur hour. You have power and authority. Everything comes back down to you. You are duly elected. We put our trust in you to do the right thing for all of us. I worked in private industry where they had, I guess you might call him the manager. He wasn't the CEO, he was the vice president. And what he actually turned out to be was the hatchet man. Nobody else wanted the responsibility of really doing the dirty work, firing, taking care of business. So I ask you, consider yourselves to be the professionals. You know what you're doing. Don't deprecate yourselves. You don't need someone else. You really don't. And last, I would like to remind you that Robert Force was in the same situation as I. He was a veteran, an honorable man, a working man, and yet he could not redeem his property either. His wife was ill, they had issues, and someone told him, well, being ill is no excuse. So I ask you to look in your conscience, in your hearts. Do the right thing by me, by Bob, by anyone who comes to you in a moment when they need your help. You have a safe trip home. I got to go back to work. God bless. Take care.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Yeah, Carl Lennon, I live in Oaksville. A couple of things, they're kind of related. Last year, the county spent a bunch of money, I don't know where it came from, I assume it was a grant, to redo the dump up here. And I've only been in there a couple times since, and I was amazed to see that the only thing I don't know how they moved the scale, couldn't have been far. I don't know who was in charge of the process. It defies common sense. And then they moved the recycle bins right in the middle so you can only get 2 cars in at a time. And I'm not surprised. I don't mean to tell you that I'm shocked or surprised. I expect that kind of thing when the government is involved. And it all comes down to accountability. I'm sure nobody got fired over this debacle. It wasn't anybody in this room's money. It's the taxpayers' money, no doubt. And that leads me to my second point of this county executive, manager, whatever you want to call him. There's no good reason to have a county manager. You people are elected by your constituents to run this county. Now, if you want to have a county manager and get rid of all your jobs, that would be okay with me. Somebody that you can point the finger to and say, this person made the decision. But we don't need another level of bureaucracy that never solves problems. You're going to have a county manager, that person's going to need an assistant, at least one, and office space. What's the budget on that? Are you going to answer that for the taxpayers before you pass this nonsense? I would like to see on every county law, but particularly on this one, if you do this, have a sunset clause. Because nobody has the backbone to throw somebody out. But at least if you don't have to, if you have to re-up the deal, then maybe people will let it slide out of existence if it's a lousy idea, which it will be. It's going to cost the taxpayers a fortune. And I don't see what the benefit is to the taxpayers. It might make your jobs easier because you can say, well, the county executive said this, and you got somebody to appear in front of the cameras. Maybe there's somebody in the room that sees himself as county manager and likes the idea. I don't know. But I think that most people, if you ask them, would be in agreement that this is a bad idea. And going forward, I hope you actually think about the taxpayers and not your own convenience before you push this through. I tried to keep that as civil as possible. Have a nice day.
Anyone else?
I'm Russell Ahrens, and I reside at 180 County Highway 26, Cooperstown. Last month when I was here, I asked you to consider reducing the speed on that road. Nothing happened, you know. I didn't expect you to start unbolting the signs and really do something, but I'll say this, we had a fairly good accident over the top of the hill there just recently. But what brings it to mind, and I'll just go back historically here, in 1988, the residence where I'm living in was hit by a drunk driver. Now it's a 54-year-old mobile home, and it was knocked off its foundation. It's very close to the road. I didn't put it there, it is the way it is, and at this point, it's all that I can afford to do at 65 years old to accommodate my life. Our lives became far more complicated because you're taking the home from Maria Gel. Please, county attorney, don't run off. We could use a new county attorney, by the way. Bob Forrest asked me to bring him up again, and here he is. This is his shirt. His wife just went some more heart surgery. He really does appreciate, or doesn't appreciate, I should say, what you've done. The question that he has for you today is how much have you spent in litigation with your Syracuse law firm to defend against all the motions, which is like, you would get this, Mr. Stamel, like this thick. Have you ever seen what's going on? It's disgusting. And then you come at us, so please reduce the speed. Backtrack a little bit on 26 ASAP. I want to go to this sheriff thing. New Year's Eve this year, I'm sitting in the mobile home watching that little screen, and all of a sudden there's flashing lights out in front of the house, in front of the trailer that is, and it's the sheriff. And a deer had run into the side of a vehicle. Fortunately, the man wasn't hurt, but the deer was laying it right in the center of the road, unconscious. And all three of us looked at each other like, what are we going to do? Well, the sheriff deputy that was there gently dragged that deer over to the side, to the adjoining driveway. And I suggested, Maria was inside praying and really didn't want to see that deer dispatched. And I said, you know, just shut off the spotlight on her for a minute. And sure enough, she got up and walked off. So, you know, we give people a chance at life, a second chance. What are we doing to each other here? The sheriff, during our eviction, we came home on October 7th in 2015 to what I would consider a home invasion with the assistance of the state police. Our horse was up in an 8-acre pasture being chased by a very large tractor with lights at night. For what reason? To be cutting that at night in October? To chase our horse, to harass us, to try to get into that home so desperately, which is now a 4th rental home for that employee. Now that is a business. And if you know the ethics laws and you just review it, we need to be upfront about what we do. I commend you, Mr. Bliss, for coming to Maria at the onslaught of this and you finding out that your agency, not yours, but the Hubble agency, had that property listed. Thankfully, it was somehow taken off. But it wasn't even listed with the property. The property had already been somehow illegally subdivided from 1 acre, doubling the price of it. So it comes clear that this was obviously a money-making situation for the purchaser. Another employee that Maria has to go upstairs and sit there. Thank you for these raises, but that's unfair. Sure, I could use a raise, and I talked to you about it. I think it's the first time you ever did what I asked you to do. And that's what you're here for. Resolution. Think of the word. Solution is part of resolution. So find the solution for what happened. Making a mistake, that is human. We all make mistakes. But what makes us superlative and gives us the divine guidance is to go backwards and do it right and to be a little humble. And that's why I'm here today. One more thing. County Executive. County Executive Ossenforth. Do you know this man? Challenge you. Raise your hand if you do. I do. Montgomery County. I used to live up that way. Sounds like a good man. 5 years. He's been elected. 5.6% increase in their sales tax last year. 400 new jobs with their Dollar General business that they got up there. So doing good. He says, and this is their slogan for next year, a stronger Montgomery. And they are getting stronger up there. One of the reasons why they're getting stronger is that they embrace the Amish population. Something that I've seen Otsego not really be so willing to do. But that's mostly up by Springfield Center in that area. There's some kind of hatred that goes on with some of the local farmers towards the Amish. It's really sad. But then again, that's kind of an extension of disliking people from downstate. So today, I ask you to consider that word rescission. And I brought that up 2 months ago. Undo what you did. You took her property without a resolution. Second property that's ever been done, so far as I know, in the history of this sale that we have. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Chairman. Thank you all for giving me the time to speak today. I stand before you today to ask for your support in reintroducing Local Law E of 2017 during the late resolution component of the meeting, enabling Otsego County to participate in the New York State Energy Improvement Corporation's Energize New York Benefit Financing Program, also known as the New York State Property Assessed Clean Energy, or PACE program. I would like to preface this statement by providing a brief refresher on the status of this legislation. On October 16, 2017, the Solid Waste and Environmental Concerns Committee voted to bring the PACE enabling legislation to the full board for discussion. The board discussed the legislation during their November 1st, 2017 meeting, and a public hearing was held on December 6th, 2017. It was then that the legislation was tabled so that the former county treasurer, Dan Crowell, could obtain clarifications on the financial risks associated with the PACE program with the New York State Comptroller's Office. Since then, multiple county officials and representatives of state and local agencies have investigated Mr. Crowell's questions with the Comptroller's Office, and according to a March 5th, 2018 email from County Attorney Ellen Kokoma, she expressed confidence that the county could proceed with the PACE program without adversely affecting the tax cap. The PACE program helps commercial properties make energy efficiency and renewable energy upgrades to buildings. As leaders, we must understand that energy efficiency and renewable energy upgrades within our communities will drive economic development, resulting in community stakeholders having increased revenue, which can be reinvested into the local economy. This is a prime example of environmental protection going hand in hand with economic development. The benefits of the PACE program could be realized immediately by jurisdictions like the City of Oneonta, who could utilize PACE financing to supplement its downtown revitalization initiative and the D&H Rail Yard redevelopment project. Similarly, PACE financing could help our agricultural sector, reducing energy costs, giving them more capital to strengthen their operations. For the county, we could demonstrate our commitment to clean energy and climate resilience to the New York State by taking a fifth action step in NYSERDA's Clean Energy Communities program. This legislation has been vetted by the county, examined by the public, and if implemented, could yield substantial benefit to the county with minimal risks. I urge you all to consider supporting this critical endeavor. Thank you. And I also would like to enter another letter into the record. I'm not going to read it, but it's from Revolution Solar, stating that they've spoken to over 24 businesses and nonprofits who have inquired about the PACE program and would like to take advantage of potential energy efficiency and renewable energy upgrades for their business. So, I have copies. Thank you.
Anyone else? Okay, we need to approve the minutes of the February 7th meeting, which are appeared online.
So moved.
Second? Did I hear a second?
Second.
Voice vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained? Approved. Presentation of petitions, communications, and notices.
I have received 2017 annual report of revenues from the following departments, and they're on file in my office. Information Technologies, Clerk of the Board, Central Telephone, Central Mail, Freedom of Information, Unallocated Insurance, DSS, OFA, Real Property, Department of Health, Veterans, DA, and Traffic Diversion Program, Planning and Solid Waste, Youth Bureau, County Clerk, Emergency Services, Probation, Board of Elections, Personnel, Sheriff, Mental Health, ARS, Codes, E911, Highway, Weights and Measures, and Purchasing. I also have the monthly report of ATI program services rendered by Catholic Charities for the month of January. And I have a notice of public hearing, which is already concluded, which was from the IDA for the proposed Oneonta Rail Yards project, which was held on February 21st at 4 p.m. This I sent you electronically, as well as it was posted on the bulletin board.
Excuse me, special presentations, Mr. Mason. Your time, you're on the clock.
Always. Good morning, folks.
I was asked to share with you both my vision and intention of where I'm trying to take our highway department and give you a brief status update of where we are at the moment. This is show and tell. This is the state's manual for locally administered federal aid projects. Missing a few chapters that don't apply to us, but the rest of it does. The biggest and the first thing that I'm hoping to accomplish is to get us a new consolidated transportation facility. The facility we have is obviously located right here in the village. It's a 60-year-old block facility, way undersized. So we are looking at consolidating the county highway department, the county bus system, possibly the ARC bus system, possibly the town of Milford, into the property immediately adjoining BOCES on County 35 in Milford. It would put us central to the county and get us a facility that's into the 21st century. It's a very big, complex project. We have a working group appointed now to start that process. It's going to take a combination of grants, bond, sale of possibly the property we have right now in Cooperstown. It's going to be a multiple-year project, but it's a worthwhile project because updating what we have in the location we have in the school zone, in the village, in Cooperstown, in the summertime, it just doesn't make sense. So we need to move forward and tackle that one. The gentleman in the back mentioned increases in county employees. I can tell you that the highway department is currently operating at less than half the staff it once had. We're gaining on equipment. The board has been generous in approving our request for equipment purchases for the last 2 years. We haven't gained a single employee. At best, we can put 40 employees in the field for a county that's 1,000 square miles. We can put in the field essentially 1 employee for every 11 centerline miles of highway system. Our adjoining counties are putting 1 employee in the field for every 4 miles. So we operate at half of what they're doing right now. Excuse me, we used to have 12 mechanics on staff. Now we have 4. At any one time, we're lucky to have 3 on the floor. We used to have a night crew of mechanics that serviced our trucks, our fleet, every 1,000 miles. We don't service things anymore, we just repair what's broken. This year we're going to have, by fall, a total of 16 new trucks. We need to be able to service and keep those things in top condition rather than letting the entire fleet deteriorate again. In the 20 months that I've been here, we've turned over 3 out of the 4 mechanics that we had. 2 retirees, one left for a better job, 1 is out on workers' comp. So for the last 20 months, I come to you every meeting and tell you that we're struggling in the garage. We eventually shut off all the other departments from getting service work done there. Enterprise is going to take a lot of that burden off us. I'm not sure whether enterprise servicing is going to be less expensive to the county. I haven't seen those figures. I doubt that anybody that's in business to make a profit is going to do it at less expense than the county employee can do it. But that's the position we're in. We just don't have the people to take on that workload. We need a full-time tree crew. I can't put a crew out in the field at all to do tree work. We attempted to get a tree contract last year and we didn't get any bidders. We attempted to get emergency tree work contract, we didn't get any bidders. In conjunction with Soil and Water Conservation District, we have a forester now. He's solely dedicated to managing the county's 3,600 acres of forest. He is putting together a tree contract right now. We'll put it out to bid and see if we can get somebody to bite on it this year. But we need to be addressing our tree issue. When I drive down a road and I see row after row of dead trees before the ash situation takes hold, as a highway person, that scares me to death. Multiple deaths a year from trees falling on cars, and it's something we need to get a handle on either through our own forest or through county contracts or a combination of both. But we're getting nowhere with that. of our system. Our planning folks went out last year with interns and rated our entire system. Our pavement conditions are generally a score in the 40s. And if you think of your high school grading, if you are on a score of 1 to 100, we're in the 40s. So our system overall is in poor condition. My assessment is going to take $4 million a year for 10 years to bring that system back up to a score of above 70, to good. This year, the planning folks are going to pick that assessment apart, route by route, segment by segment, and figure out the cost of what treatments are necessary, and come back with a more refined dollar value. Our engineering staff has been abolished title by title. We have no engineering staff. There are 2 of us that run that department. This is where I think my priorities should be. It's a terrible procedure to have to go through, but if we're successful going through state and federal aid, we can wind up paying 5% of the cost of a bridge. So like County 59 is estimated it's going to cost us $2.6 million. If we're successful in getting state and federal aid, that costs us less than $120,000. But the process is terrible. Going through federal aid and increases the cost of the project, but again, it decreases our share of that. But it's not user-friendly, and terribly time-consuming, and that's just for every single project we do that has any involvement of the state of the feds. That's Bridge New York, our culverts, paved New York, all of these things go through that process. I said to our chair yesterday that without reservation, I can tell them that there is no way that 2 people can run that department and take care of these things, our contracts, our personnel issues, the daily in and out, the conversations, the folks that just show up on the doorstep, can't be done, a department that size with 2 people. We have a process that is in compliance with state and federal law called Local Design Services Agreement, LDSA. It's a combination effort between New York State DOT and the New York State Association of County Highway Superintendents. It's a pretty involved process where every 3 years they go through and they survey expressions of interest from consultant firms, and then they come up with a regional list of firms that are vetted, and then they come up with a county short list of firms that are vetted. The intent is to be an efficient process for counties to reach out and get engineering services when they need them. We're certainly not going to do it on our own, and but just reaching out to the world in general and looking for expressions of interest and then looking for specific quotes for project, it just gobbles up years of time. So we've eliminated our engineering staff, and at the same time we are hesitant to utilize the system that's in place throughout the state. So I encourage you to spend a little bit more time looking at LDSA, learning to understand it, learning to see how it complies with state and federal law, and give it some thought in terms of our utilization of it. Some bright spots. We are gaining on lifting the postings and the flags from our structures. We made a pretty good stride forward on a number of them last year. We still have some big ones that are going to be very costly. My predecessor did not like to use this process. It's onerous, it's very involved. But if we don't use the process and we need to replace a bridge like County 59, that pretty much shoots our entire CHIPS funding from the state for the year. So it's a simplified way of going about it, but it takes that pot of money that we have for everything else and wipes it out in one bridge. I can't say as I like going through this, but if I could get a bridge replaced for $120,000 rather than $2.6 million, I'll do the work. But this is where I see where I should be spending my time. Our highway signing is outstanding. As a highway guy, that's one of the things I look at right away. Coming from the state side, DOT, it was very important. Our sign crew does an outstanding job, and they are more and more involved push them pretty hard. I see improvements to the system. I think that's one of our bright spots. We were extremely fortunate to find a superintendent that works 70-plus hours a week. He's there at 5 o'clock in the morning, he's there till 6 o'clock at night, he's working on the weekends. To get a 20-plus year county employee that was willing to step up and take on that job and do an outstanding job, I can't tell you how lucky we were. And I know you folks that deal with him in Public Works appreciate the value we found there. We're creeping ahead towards the new transportation facility. We met with BOCES. They want us to be right next door so that the kids come out of their programs, go right into our garage, see the real world, see what's available, maybe get another 2 years of education, come back to Otsego County, work, and stay here. The property that's adjacent to them is outstanding. It's on County Route 35. They are totally on board with their board to support us in this endeavor. So we're hoping that this facility will have a chance to move forward. Pretty much the highlights I have. If anybody's got any questions?
Couple things. Would you please mention the name of your superintendent?
Mr. Brimmer?
Thank you.
Richard Brimmer.
The other thing is, one thing I don't believe you mentioned was that the existing garage cold storage area is pretty much been condemned.
You know, we had engineers do an assessment of what's called the heated truck barn, which is the wall which is immediately adjacent to our offices on Linden Ave. The engineer came back to us and said it was structurally deficient. It's just a cinder block building with some steel trusses. The lintels over the doors are rotted, and some of them have collapsed in the past. We did put out a request for proposal for quotes last year. After about 5 years of thinking about and looking at this thing, and the quotes came back from $75,000 to $100,000 to do the lead assessment, the asbestos assessment, the engineering and architectural drawing, and the bid contract documents. That's going to take all this year, and just to get us to the point where we could conceivably go ahead and demolish that part, take it down to the slab. We know that that particular property, from the fuel island, salt sheds, to where our offices are, is a very valuable piece of property. It's a terrible spot for a highway department right there in the school zone in the village, but it's a wonderful, very valuable piece of property for the county. So we're moving forward with that. I think we have approval for that contract coming up, and hopefully we'll get through that this year.
One thing I would ask as a member of Public Works is that, the question I would have, is it wiser for you to be doing that work or to have somebody employed to do that work? The grant work. And beyond that, I would ask that you put a package together for the budget approval season for fiscal 2019.
For staffing. Mr. Obrocker asked me, we talk in acronyms. This is the FLAP LAP right there, federally local administered projects. IPP, initial project proposal, that's something I put in as the first step to get us on the program with the state for any type of project. That's not that involved, especially the first shot, you know, just to get their attention, get on board. We can utilize the consultants on LDSA to go to the next step, the expanded project proposal, where you get into scope of work, estimate of cost, and basic engineering design stuff. Yeah, that's the point where we need to bring them on board, because there are folks that do this, that's what they do, and they know this thing in and out. And yeah, for me to initiate it and you know, work through the process is part of it, but getting them on board with us is the other part. Bottom line is, we as the sponsor are always responsible for that project. We're responsible for inspecting it, getting it designed right, making sure it's paid for. The bottom line responsibility always lies with the sponsor.
Maybe for the benefit of Mr. Aarons, could you explain the process someone needs to go through to request a reduction in speed limit on the road?
Oh, great, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Speed limits are the purview of New York State DOT. Most folks don't realize it, but the state highway system is owned by the New York State Department of State. And even when DOT changes something, they have to get a release from the Department of State to change that. For us to change the speed limit, we have to get a resolution from the town. Then it comes to me, and I'll sign off on it or not. Then it goes to New York State DOT. They'll come out and do a radar check. And then they come back with a traffic order, and they'll say either the speed limit is appropriately dropped from 55 to 45, or as in the case of the request of Route 7 in Worcester, they have denied that request 3 times in a row. So the choice is not up to the county, it's totally up to state DOT.
You need to start with the town.
Yeah, I really appreciate that information. I'll be going to our town, okay? And I wasn't aware of that. If you've driven that road, you'll know that the other end of that road for the last at least half mile is a 35 zone. Through Toddsville, which is a more highly populated area with curves, the implication, it's 45, but the implication is end speed zone, it says, just before you go over this giant hill where you have to stop, where there's been so many accidents that, I mean, it wore the map out with the pins that were in it. About, you know what I mean, Grasslands Hill, about, you know, that area.
The starting point is to go to your town, get a
Okay.
resolution of what it
Now,
is.
I would ask you, as, you know, my representatives, is there anyone here and someone, say, in your position that can help facilitate this? I mean, after all, you do have a little more influence than me.
Your resolution will come to me, I'll sign off on it, and
Okay.
I'm the one that submits it to the state.
Mm-hmm.
And then they will do a radar check. They investigate every single one of them. Now, I gotta tell you, there have been towns in the last year that have requested every one of their roads be reduced. So the state's going to acknowledge and respond to that, but it's gonna take them 2 years to go out there and do radar checks
Yeah.
on every bit of that.
See, all of 28 has been reduced, as you're probably, I don't know if you haven't lived around here long enough, but we've had a lot of speed reductions all over the area, and it's involving Dream Park, a part of it. But I happen to live on the main north-south trucking route, so we get a lot of heavy trucking, and they, you know, push the speed limit, to say the least. Besides, we also have the Montessori school there, which really doesn't have a busing system. So we have approximately 150 cars a day that make 4 trips past where I live, and usually they're in a hurry. So, I mean, there's a lot of traffic. This is a very high traffic area that I'm speaking of, higher than anybody really realizes.
And you don't want me to close that bridge, correct?
Well, in 59, hey, I was there when they built that bridge, and it's a good bridge. But with that, I leave you. Have a great day,
The
y'all.
process is the same whether it's a state highway or a county highway, it goes through New York State DOT.
All right, any other questions? All right, thank you. Thank you for presenting it. We have no other special presentations, I believe. Reports of standing committees. Public Works, Representative Ober.
Thank you, Chairman Bliss. I don't think there's much more I can expand upon from a highway perspective than what Bill just communicated to us. And I would like to start off by saying thank you to Bill, thank you to Rich, and more importantly, thank you to all our guys out in the field for the last storms and the way they performed their duties. They did an exceptional job. And kind of a nice positive note was to see on TV last night at WKTV, the highway department being interviewed and proposed out there in a good light. So for that, I thank WKTV for bringing that up. Some projects that are going on, as Bill had alluded to, under highway are pretty extensive. I mean, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, or 6 bridge projects in line. We have 2 culvert projects, and then the barn demolition project that Bill had also alluded to coming up. So there'll be some actually quite a bit of activity down there coming up into the spring with these processes. I did get informed that we will be changing our shifts, our spring shift, from 7 a.m. to 3:30 p.m. will begin on on April 2nd, 2018, and it will end on April 29th, 2018, and then from April 30th on, we will start with our 6 a.m. to 4:30 shift down at Highway. We had alluded to, and Bill had alluded to, that we are ordering some trucks for the highway, which are sorely needed. But that will also create a little bit of a surplus with some trucks that we have down in the highway department. So I would like to let each and every one of the representatives know, potentially, there could be some trucks that would help their local highway departments in the towns that they represent. We would be willing to look at those requests and seeing if there's a potential to upgrade some of the highway equipment at the local level. I think it would be a kind of a show of good support, as well as helping some of the towns out that, of course, help take care of county roads. So we'll put together a list. I will send those out to all board reps. Inquire at your local level and see if there's any interest there, and we'll look at addressing that. We did take in some surplus vehicles in Public Works that we would be putting out for auction here fairly soon. We do have some cars, we do have, I believe, a grader as well. So there'll be some other equipment that we would be looking at getting moved out. From forestry, it was really nice at our last Public Works meeting to have an update on what was going on. We have some parcels that had been marked out, and 2 more have started. We found a list of names and parcels that before we didn't know, not so much we didn't know existed, but we were able to put names of these 2 parcels. We're kind of working on revamping the website for forestry. A forest technician is in the process of setting up and learning the two-dog forestry software system, which will improve our ability to know exactly where we are, where our lines are, and what our potential will be under forestry. And it was just really nice, as I said, to be able to get an updated forest report on that, which means that we've got some good things going in that direction. Building services, again, I start off with a thank you. I got word that over the weekend we had an issue at the jail with some waste line being not waste efficient. It was plugged, and Doug went down. He did his usual job of addressing the issue. They tried to clear it. There was an issue with what they were using to clear it that broke, and we had to actually send cameras down to find out what was there. And it was some articles of clothing that had mysteriously found their way into the system. So it's never an easy thing. Doug was called out over the weekend. I want to thank him again for moving forward in addressing that issue. I'm sure we can all appreciate what that would mean to the public service building. That would not be an advantage. We have the county attorney's reconstruction complete here in this building. We're looking at the tiny homes project, and Doug has attended several discussions and meetings moving forward with that. We had some rooftop units down at the public safety troubleshoot and agree to get those fixed and working. We had a problem with the highway boiler when it was about 3 degrees outside, and that went down again. Doug was able to get it up and going, and then there was some minor damage, I believe, at the southern transfer station to some siding on the building there that Doug had taken up and repaired. So Again, kind of keeping things together, Doug has done a great job as far as I'm concerned, and with our snow removal process. The building at 242, just a quick update again, evaluating. Grants are being applied for, we're looking at the potential there. Does it make sense to potentially relocate some of the offices there? The biggest thing being the security concerns and the amount of money it would take to create a secure environment. We'll have more updates moving forward on that. I did reach out to, for the broadband issue, to Tim Johnson, spoke to him in length. Basically, nothing's changed. I requested an updated map of the lines and the plans for him moving forward as to into the upper areas of, I believe, of Westford and Decatur. And he said he would try to get me an updated map, although at this point I do not have one. I then asked him if we could get the map that was in the presentation at least to get an idea. And again, I still haven't received that. I will follow up with Tim there. Tower lease, I had reached out again to Jacqueline Phillips at Crown. And I also reached out again to Ellen and discussed the process moving forward with getting an RFP, getting the charter issue versus non-charter for the county. So I am working through that, although a little bit slower with some of the other projects and some of the other things that are before us. Public Works is going to be scheduled at our next meeting, which would be March 15th, that's Thursday, at 12:30, up here in the second floor conference room. And I will answer any and all questions at this time.
Questions for the chair? Hearing none, thank you. Oh, wait, your next meeting, did you say?
Yes, Thursday, March 15th at 12:30.
IGA, Representative Kennedy.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The IGA committee met. We had a visitor from Southern Tier East, Jen Gregory, the new executive director. She's been in the position since 2016. She explained a little bit to us about the role that Southern Tier East plays within the economic development and kind of federal money stream. They are our region's link to federal dollars, federal funding. And I did write down here, they help, these are the key areas that they could be reached out to and serve as a resource: business support and infrastructure, water quality and GIS, healthcare programs done through the Innovative Readiness Training, which was a U.S. Army program, right, Karen? So Karen was there, and she's kind of knows about these things as well, so also a good resource. Engineering assistance, and they are available to guide an entity through the consolidated funding application process, which can be kind of a long and drawn out process. So just to let everyone know, that's the Southern Tier East, and Jen Gregory is the executive director. They cover an 8-county region. It's the Appalachian Regional Commission. It's our piece of it, 8 counties. We had Greg Klein come in and update us as to the feasibility study for a film office, which we are waiting further details and following with a great deal of interest. I think he's going to come back and give us updates along the way. So, we had Jody Zagrebski come in from Otsego Now, gave us an update, a monthly report, which we found to be extremely interesting and helpful to understand the different things that economic development is, well, the hurdles that they face and the different kind of challenges that might be there with regards to infrastructure and energy and so forth. We had a special meeting for the IGA on 2/27. We discussed only the governance structure of the county at that time, so the county manager. We welcome anyone who cared to come talk with us and sit down, just having conversations and trying to identify needs for the county and where this process might take us. So we're on the beginning steps. We have another, let's do this in two pieces. We have our regular IGA meeting scheduled for 3/15/18 at 9 a.m. And we have another governance committee meeting, IGA, scheduled for 3/27/18 at 9 a.m. So we have two more IGA meetings coming up. And again, all input is welcomed and appreciated and will be given due diligence. Any questions?
Sturb Engineering, you mentioned engineering from Sturb.
Yes.
What kind of services are they talking about?
Well, that was kind of tied in with the IRT, with the Innovative Readiness Training, that you have to sign up with ahead of time with is it the Army Corps of Engineers? Is that what it is? Is it something to do with?
It's an Army-based emergency service type,
They come and practice build things.
reserves.
Yeah, they build things for you, but you have to get in line to sign up for it.
Well, you
Right.
have to have the IRT first.
Yeah.
So, 2 years ago in Shenango County, they had the IRT week where people could go and get free services for dental, health, even veterinarian services. And if you're a county that sponsors that IRT, then you are eligible for engineering services through the program. And Shenango County, I think, did a lot of improvements to the fairgrounds through that service. So they come in, you sponsor the event, and then they contribute to engineering work in your county.
So are we not able to sign up for that? Are we entertaining signing up for it? Are we?
I am not sure where we are on it. It is available, but I'm not sure when the sign-up time for this year's work schedule is.
It's every 2 years.
Yeah, so I would have to investigate that further with Ms. Gregory. Yeah, but it is available. We just have to get the timing right. Yeah.
I have a question. I was wondering, as regarding Mr. Zakrevsky's report,
Yes,
I was wondering if that was provided to the IGA committee in writing?
it was, yes. I think it was submitted as part of the minutes.
It's probably in the minutes, okay, yeah.
Yeah.
So it's in there, okay,
Yeah.
thank you.
Anyone else?
I think, could we have Jody come to speak to the entire board on what they're doing?
Sure.
You know?
And I think actually he's already scheduled, not scheduled, but
He's planning on coming to the IGA again next week.
Right, but the full
Yeah,
board
we'll
so that
make
people
sure-
can ask them questions and
Sure.
Yeah.
see what their plans are. Thanks.
We'll make sure, Dave, that we extend that invitation.
And also, I know you report on, but tourism, they're supposed to report to this board as well a couple of times a year.
I mentioned it to Jim Miles, he was here for the hearing, and I think Dave just has to just contact him about
yeah, he was
schedule.
here and things were delayed so long, I believe.
I'm meeting with the DMCOC on Thursday at 2 p.m., so I can issue the invitation at that point. And then I can also have them come into IGA as well. I think that, that this would be an appropriate time to hear from them, heading into the tourism season, so.
Thank you.
Question here?
Meg, can I just say one
Yes.
thing to
Yes.
kind of update your update?
Sure.
Just for the full board to know, after we met with Senator Seward a couple weeks ago, we kind of abandoned the idea of getting money for a feasibility study. Because in his words, everybody knows we need it, so why spend money to be told that we need it? So we have a sample budget, and we're just kind of working from there to see what might be the next step. And I think DMCOC is kind of the next place for conversations.
Meeting on Thursday?
And you'll be there on Thursday, so thank you.
Okay.
Thank you, Meg. President Kennedy. Human Services, Representative Cooten.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. We met on We met on Lincoln's birthday for sure. And I'm going to assume everybody's read the minutes. Focus on a couple things that we're going to ask you to vote on today. We did our resolutions, our contracts, fiscal health. We talked about personnel, especially vacancies and so forth. Most of that we do every month. But two actions that we took will be in the consent agenda today. Start with number 114, which is the addition of 2 temporary senior caseworkers. This is to provide a more flexible and resilient organizational structure for the turnover issue, so that we don't have to have, so DSS doesn't have to have a separate line for a temporary position under every position that they have in the department. These temporary positions are used for the 6-month training period that it takes to get somebody online and going. So these are more flexible positions that will only be filled when it's necessary, when there's been when there's been a vacancy. The other one is the upgrade. It's number 113. It's the upgrading of various caseworker positions. This, although it will help with the turnover issue, that wasn't the reason it was done. Over a number of years, Penny has noticed that the requirements and the job descriptions of casework, various levels of caseworkers in DSS have not kept pace with the requirements of the job or the other levels in the rest of the county. So, for instance, we would like a level 14 to be pretty much the same kind of position throughout all the departments in the county. This was not the case for very long ago historic reasons in DSS, and so over a large number of months, Penny has been working on updating the job descriptions and the salary scales, and went over to her office once a month or so ago, and there were job descriptions all over the floor in big piles. It was a big job, and so what we have for you today is essentially bumping up 4 or 5, I don't remember, levels, 2 levels, each one going up 2 levels, and that will bring it in proper relationship to everybody else in the county. The Tiny Homes project is moving to that it's at that part of the project where we're getting all sorts of tests and approvals. So the ground isn't broken yet. The next meeting is March 14th, 9 a.m. on the third floor conference room, and you are all welcome to attend.
Any questions for the chair?
Thank you, Gary. I had to leave the meeting early before you discussed the tiny homes. We have we're contracting with somebody for a large amount of money,
We have, let's see,
Tiny Homes for Good. And they're the sub-recipient.
yeah.
Yeah. And what services are they going to provide for that?
Consultations, as far as I know. Yeah. Yeah, I don't remember.
200.
My notes are on. I'll get back to you.
That's Karen.
I've
That's
never
easy.
seen it voted on a committee.
That's easy.
I can answer that if you
Oh,
want.
okay,
Okay?
that's even easier.
Okay. We're working with Eve, and A Tiny Homes for Good is a nonprofit in Syracuse that is building tiny homes for homeless. And so we have asked them to submit a estimate for being what I call the project manager. With the CDBG money, there's 3 components of, acronym CDBG means Community Development Grant, so it's Office of Community Renewal. So we were awarded $300,000 to do this project. Out of that, there's delivery money, there's administration money, and then there's what I call activities, so the actual construction. So what we normally do, we normally work with ORHA, we're asking A Tiny Homes for Good to be the project manager. They receive administration money and delivery money, and there's a definition between the two. So if you're administrating, saying just documenting hours, that's administrated. If you're doing a procurement for work, that's delivery. And then the rest is activity, which is money to build. So we split with our department and whoever is the subrecipient a percentage of the administration, because we do a lot of the paperwork. So their proposal to us was around $22,500. The resolution reads to include the funding for the actual construction as well. So you'll see the difference is roughly around the difference of what we're taking for administration money. So they will be awarded an amount, or they'll be working for an amount for administration cost and delivery, but the big hunk of that money, which is I think $317,000 or $270 some odd thousand, is for the construction cost. So they will be doing the work as the project manager. We will be giving them the money to pay the contractors who are doing the work, so that's why the number there looks deceiving, because it looks like we're paying them all this money, but we're not. So
are all these jobs that need to be done going to be bid out? I mean, construction homes will
we're
be
trying
automatically
to,
going
we're
in?
trying to avoid as much bidding as possible for 2 reasons. That increases your cost, increases the time. So right now we have Delhi College, who is doing a protocol for unit right now. They'll have on the 22nd, we're going there to look at the protocol they have done. They're going to be doing the construction at the Delhi Construction Program, which we do not have to procure. That'll be a memorandum of agreement between A Tiny Homes for Good and Delhi College. We've contacted Job Corps, and they're on board to do concrete work and possibly electrical and plumbing. They will be under A Tiny Homes for Good subcontractor. It'll be an MOU, so we don't have to go out to procurement. The only thing we're looking at for possible procurement will be engineering work, which we've already started getting estimates, and the actual electrical and plumbing connections when it comes down to when you need a professional to do those final installations. So we're trying to avoid any procurement as much as possible. So right now we're looking at 8 units, trying to keep our costs down by working with these nonprofits in the schools. We're hoping we can do maybe more.
So I guess, Gary, we run this through our purchasing agent?
Yes. They have been, we have been in contact with them and OCR every step of the way.
Could we maybe have for the boards where we're going with the program? Because there are different things, how to find what temporary housing is and what target group we'd like to have living there. Because for me, I would like to see the first outreach go to veterans.
I'm not we're just.
No, I'm not asking you, that was to Gary.
I think the plan was, the homeless population is varied. And one of the ways we can distinguish among the groups is some are homeless for long periods of time. Some are homeless for 1 night, 2 nights, a week, till they get set up or move or situated somewhere. And I think the tiny homes are the thought is to, and of course this can change, they haven't even broke ground yet, so lots of talking to go on this, but the thought is to to provide that kind of housing to those who are the longer term ones. Now, whether whether they tend to be veterans or not, I don't know. But certainly bring it up and we'll,
If there's 3 or 4 veterans in this county that have an issue, I think
Yeah.
it's either 3 or 4 people, and then you have to have
It's definitely
services
gonna-
right there for them at the middle.
It's definitely gonna be a better situation at the tiny homes, and so I think it would be a good idea to investigate that for the veterans.
There's also restrictions, I think, on the, the type of people that the social services has, who they can put near each other.
Right, I just
There's
think
a lot
we're
of
spending like,
restrictions.
we're appropriating here, up to $285,000, we don't really have an idea. The rest of the members, I mean, I've only been on that committee for 2 months, maybe talked about it more last year, but, the details of where we're going, what we're doing.
Kathy, I can forward the application, which included a program plan that Eve put together for the use of the units once
Go
they're
to
built.
to the whole board who the target is, and I think it's
Sure.
appropriate maybe to have it present to the whole board, so the questions can be. Because we're not bound by the application process.
Well,
You-
you are to a point,
Okay,
yes.
so it
because-
defines what temporary is?
Yes.
It's temporary, 2 years, 1 year,
And I don't
6
want to
months?
speak for Eve, but my conversations have been that this is for emergency, short-term housing for single
Emergency housing,
individuals.
yeah.
So the
There's
focus-
emergency, there's intermediate, and there's permanent housing, and permanent housing. And this is emergency housing.
This
which
is
almost
emergency,
what we
short-term,
think
up
of
to, we're looking at 120 days. So that's what I've heard through conversations. And OCR is, you do have an obligation to maintain that program for a 5-year period with this money that we're giving you to build.
Social services is a very complex unit.
And of course, and I've said this before, every night someone spends in one of the tiny homes is $50 we're not paying the hotel per person.
Plus the cost of dispersal.
Andrew?
Karen, I just wanted to clarify, the 13.5 is the admin then for the county?
Altogether in admin, I think we have 20 together, so off the top of my head, Andrew, I don't have those figures, but whatever the difference is between 300,000 and what we have in the resolution, is what we
Okay.
have for our department.
13.5.
Yes,
13.5.
Yeah, okay, great, thanks.
That's what we go into the county for your portion of the item.
For our time in our office, yes.
Any other questions for Representative Kudnick? And your meeting, Public Safety and Legal Affairs, Representative Frazier.
Mr. Chair, we met on February 16th. We approved hiring and purchases for the sheriff, for Sheriff Devlin. We approved training for 2 correctional officers to attend a jail administrator conference in Saratoga. We also approved the purchase of a driving simulator for educational purposes through grant money. One of the things the simulator will simulate driving is texting and driving, so it's something we're, in the future, he's anticipating purchasing a trailer to put this in and take it to schools, and similar to the Stop DWI. We discussed the MOU between 911 and the New York State Police. The New York State Police will be attending our next PSLA meeting to discuss the pending renewal. We also discussed the Bella report and our much-needed jail upgrades. County clerk come in, she was represented by Jennifer Basile. We approved filling 2 vacancies in DMV. Our communications director, 911, Rob O'Brien, updated us on our continuing upgrades to the radio system. We're going to be putting up 3 more towers this year. We're looking forward to spring to continue our build out. We also discussed renewal of the 911 MOU with him. Then our codes officer, Tony Gentile, came in. I think he forwarded to everybody a proposed restructuring of the fee schedule and lowering of some of the fire safety inspection fees. That is ongoing discussion. We had a lengthy discussion with some of our county residents and business owners regarding the interactions of our county codes with their respective projects. I believe the committee learned much. Some of the areas concern our committee members. We are attempting to correct some of those problems as we speak. Probation officer Dan Norton came in. We approved sending 7 probation officers to the Otsego County Law Enforcement Academy for baton training. Emergency Services, Victor Jones and Art Klinger came in. The highlight there was we discussed our training center upgrades and how to move forward. We are still waiting on answers to the survey sent out to all the fire departments. If any of you interact with your departments and your districts, please encourage them to fill out their surveys. It is on where the training center should be. Should it stay where it is? We're putting a new one up. Should it move more centrally located? Very, very low response from the departments. We will be moving forward regardless, but if they want input, now is the time to have the input. Public Defender, Bruce Maxson came in. He discussed the 18B budgets, how we can lessen the strain. He also went over, he recapped the presentation that Ellen, myself, and Bruce sat in with the Office of Indigent Legal Defense representatives from the state came down on caseload improvement and reduction. If the proposed state budget is passed, we should be receiving $140,000 to implement some of some of the improvements. The Fire Advisory 911 Advisory Boards met on the February 15th. Our next PSLA meeting is March 19th, and we are meeting at 12:30, and we're going to be in classroom B at the Meadows Building. We will be touring the 911 and the emergency services while we're there that day. Any questions?
The time again?
12:30.
Representative Marietta.
I just wanted to follow up on the Tony's proposal for the decrease in the code fees. I had just emailed just some correspondence with him, and he had mentioned he hasn't really heard back from anyone else on the board yet. So I just wanted to put just to kind of re-emphasize what Ed is mentioning, that obviously I was on PSLA at that point in time when those fees were increased, and as Tony says in that correspondence, there was a lot of pushback on it, and I know PSLA is obviously still dealing with that, but I think it would be great for people to take a look. Tony put a nice overview together of showing you where the fees were in 2016, 2017, and what he's proposing for 2018, and I think, in my opinion, I think that he is correct that a decrease in fees obviously would create a better working relationship with around the fire inspection services, but that obviously is for everyone else to weigh in on. But I would just put another point out there that PSLA needs that feedback from us, so Tony, because I think Tony's looking for this guidance to formalize those fees, because he needs to take action.
There's a couple of pertinent points there. One is government would provide services. Do we charge for all those services, or are those services expected with the taxes that are paid? Our fire safety inspection is something that we should be providing at little or no cost for the protection of those that come to us, live here and come. The other is there an issue of double dipping, especially on some of the rentals? So they're paying a bed tax. The county's getting a part of that bed tax. Should those bed tax fees be covering the inspections? So, or are we charging these rentals a second time because we are collecting the bed tax, and we're charging them fees to inspect their premises? So now, $100,000 hit in his budget on the revenue side is significant. So that's the genesis, that's where the conversation came from. And it's not, especially when you just increase them, to make the department revenue positive. You increase them, so you're covering this. His argument, since I've known Tony, I believe, has said, should codes be revenue positive? Or is it a service that should be, and I see the argument both sides. So that's where the conversation is.
I would say from my towns, my understanding of it is that codes is the responsibility of the towns, fire inspections. Some, I don't know how many, have their own codes officers.
Not very many.
Maybe not,
Exactly.
but the ones that don't are deferring to the county. So we're gonna take a $100,000 hit, and the people in Otsego are paying for a codes officer to provide that service, and then also going to absorb the cost of lessened fees from the county to do a service that relies on the town. Now, I'm not averse to billing back the town. When you look at the codes office, as I did a couple of years ago, the number of fire inspections that they're doing, where a majority of them are, it bothers me sometimes when I hear the Village of Cooperstown mayor say they get nothing for their tax dollar, because many of them were in Cooperstown, you know, and so is it fair to bill it across the county when other municipalities are paying, they're paying double then? They're paying through their taxes through the county to provide that service, and they're also paying through their tax in the town. So I don't have a problem if we don't want to, hey, you base it on usage. If we're doing 80% of our inspections in this municipality, maybe they need to pick up the cost, because we're already picking up the cost of the retirement and everything else for these people that they're getting older.
Having been in Mr. Gentile's shoes, my position is that the code office is a service, much like the sheriff's department or other entity. But that's not to say that we can't recoup some of that money. I don't think it should be a service that is totally paid for. But the money that comes from bed tax is kind of a pass-through the proprietors. They don't actually pay that. People that say they pay that. That's on top of the fees.
Pay it on the bill.
Right. Okay. So, to charge the proprietors a reasonable fee to cover some of our costs, I don't see as a problem.
I think that's well said.
Well, the only thing I was wondering, Ed, is maybe you could check into what other counties are doing and how other counties do this.
He included that in the information.
Oh, okay, all right.
Those aren't being discussed.
Oh, okay, all right.
The inequity is being discussed.
Did we all get copies of those?
He forwarded, it's in our email too, I think.
Because we originally, whenever this was first looked at, changing the fee schedule, we had the guy came down from the state, and we didn't go as high as he said we should go on them. He said what the state would charge for them, because that's their next layer. We're trying to find some sort of a balance there between the two.
Representative Farwell?
Just the point I wanted to make was that, right, the fees as they are right now put us as one of the highest in the state for a county, which doesn't seem right to me. I think we need to find the appropriate balance.
That's on the fire safety inspection.
Just
Not the
fire,
village
yes.
itself.
Everything else is comparable, it's just the
Yeah.
fire safety
Okay.
that puts us.
Correct. I think, Mr. Marietta, do you see?
Oh, no, I don't have it.
Okay.
No.
The only thing I would like to expand on that is, I think it's, since we brought the bed tax issue into it, I have a constituent that is very unhappy in that some of the online vendors sign residential homes up for rental space. And it would appear that not all of them are in the mix as far as being inspected and as far as being, paying their fair share of bed tax.
That is an issue.
So I'm going to be sending some information to the rest of my constituents here that I have received. And I think we need to look at that as part of the package.
That's an ongoing issue.
Right.
And every year, some open, some close, some people go into the business. But that is something that the treasurer and the codes office
Right.
both attempt to track. You know, when one hears of it, or one is advertising or something, that they constantly are looking at that, mustering that. That
It's
is-
not an easy issue.
No, it isn't, so, but, and
As a
there will
rule,
always
those are
someone that,
independent.
there will always be someone that's skirting around.
Right. And
As
then
a
there
rule,
are,
those
there
are
are,
independent, the ones that go through the brokers.
yes.
You know, they require that certificate before some of the big.
And one of the online brokers is cooperating with us, but that's not necessarily true for the rest of them. So there's some inequities there.
But to echo Dan's point, the city of Oneonta is also very concerned about how Airbnb has kind of integrated itself into the local market. It's been very difficult to properly inspect and enforce our city zoning code, just because of how quick, you can get on Airbnb and how long it takes to get an inspection done, and the ability of local governments to track and a location on a mapping software of some sort is very challenging. And so there's been, the city's trying to figure out, how do we incentivize people to come into compliance, how do we work with Airbnb, and there's already legal pressure from Airbnb to kind of make sure that the city doesn't overly restrict short-term rentals from coming in through zoning or other sort of land use regulations. So it's very challenging, and it's, it's an issue that will appear more and more as tourism increases. That's the Airbnb kind of issue. So.
But Airbnb is collecting bed tax for us.
They are.
On all
Yep, they do.
That was all I was gonna say, I just wanted to mention, we did have that agreement with them. I think there's only, from what I've read about Airbnb, because this is a big issue in New York City, but there's 17 counties in New York State that have that agreement with Airbnb right now.
And we don't want them.
Yep, we're one of them.
Anything else for Mr. Frazier? Health and Ed.
Next meeting, time and date?
I know he was talking about different things.
Monday the 19th at 12:30.
19th at 12:30, classroom B with the metal grid.
Yeah, he mentioned that.
Okay.
Health and Ed, Representative Stanley.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The committee met on February 12th. We made various appointments to councils and boards. We met with Heidi Bond from the Department of Health. She reported that the Living Healthier Expo is going forward, so it'll be April 6th and 7th at 10 a.m. at Foothills in Oneonta. So I encourage you all to attend if you're interested. She also reported that rabies and flu are unusually busy this year, and she's working on keeping up with all that. I think we've all noticed the flu season's pretty busy this year. There, let's see, was some funding from, district funding from state DOH. Also, there was a discussion at the committee about the preschool transportation services. The current contract is good through 2020, so we're sticking with that, but there is the potential to pursue a consultant that'll help us kind of manage the runs, improve the runs to see if we're efficiently serving the users. So we'll probably hear more about that next month. Community Services, Martha Quackenbush, reported that they're applying for an integrated license with the New York State Office of Mental Health. So that would allow them to more efficiently provide services to their patients, to the users. Also increase their ability to serve, especially people with dual diagnoses, and also improve their licensing process. So they would just apply for one license instead of two separate ones. We talked a bit about the potential relocation of 242 Main and how one of those grants that could be applied for might be through let's see, Department of Health. Office for the Aging, we spoke with Tammy McDonald. They were awarded a OFA grant from the Alzheimer's Association, so that was good news. We met with Don Smyers from Cornell Cooperative again. He had two resolutions, or requested two resolutions from us. So the first one was just really kind of hammering out the last questions we had about one that we had addressed in January. So that's on your agenda. And then the second one was moving for approval to spend up to $25,000 for a contract between Cornell and the county for the position. As you'll see, the ag implementation specialist, both of those are on the agenda today. And I see Don's here as well, so in case you have questions coming up, you might be able to help out with that. Finally, we spoke with Julie Dostal at LEAF. We invited her as a guest. She was really pleased to receive the invitation, had a lot of information. I think it was appreciated by the prong attack to addiction in the county, whether it's opiates or other forms of addiction. There's prevention, treatment, and recovery. Julie and her organization really do the prevention work. They work in local schools, they work in various events around the county, and we are supporting their work. They'd love to continue to improve their relationship with us, and would be happy to continue to appear at Health and Ed and also present to the full board. Julie would be pleased to do so if she's invited. Again, just keep up those lines of communication, improve the relationships, and there also is an opiate task force that meets the first Tuesday of odd-numbered months at 1:30 at the LEAF office. So you're all invited to attend those meetings as well. What's that?
It happened yesterday.
Oh, did you? Oh, great. All right, I think that was about it. The next meeting is scheduled for Monday, March 12th at 9 a.m. Any questions?
Representative
I would like to request that we do invite Julie to speak on her functioning specifically the opioid epidemic.
Would you want to contact her?
Yeah, sure, absolutely.
Have her contact me?
For next month?
At her convenience.
Okay.
I don't think we have anything scheduled next month at the time.
We do.
When is next month? Okay.
Okay.
Well, depending, we might be able to do a couple. I mean, we have a lot going on, so there's probably months we're gonna have two.
Sure.
So whenever she's, I guess we can do it for her.
Okay.
Representative Marietta.
I just wonder where, with Heidi Bond, where we stood with the public health app and kind of, I saw in the minutes that it kind of been brought back and it didn't look like there was approval on that, right? So is it still in development, or is she fine tuning her plan of action or her proposal?
Yeah, that's a good question. We didn't discuss that this month, did we? Do you remember?
I do remember.
Okay.
It is moving forward, and I think she was gonna have a prototype for us.
That,
Okay.
okay.
Yeah. Next, the meeting that's coming up.
All right, so I'll reach out to her just to confirm
Yeah.
that.
I thought we spoke at admin regarding that.
About,
Didn't we
Checking
speak at
the
admin?
minutes on admin, we talked about a budget mod for the radon grant, the budget mod for laptops, and also the budget mod for the Living Healthier Expo, but I don't see
Yeah, it
about
wasn't-
the actual app.
yeah, the app wasn't, I didn't see it in the admin minutes, but I just wanted, Andrew, when they bring that back up again, can you just
Oh,
ask her?
here it is, there is something in here in admin, I'm sorry.
Oh, yeah, go ahead.
But, Heidi Bond requested approval to create an assigned fund BOH DISRIP in 2017, the amount. Approval, where is that? How could I miss it? I just was looking at it, I'm sorry. Sorry.
No, that's correct. Yeah, we did approve that.
Yeah, but I thought I had
Yep.
something in here about the, okay, noting funds will be used to purchase the public health app.
Right.
Representative Frazier moved for approval.
Okay,
Yeah.
so it's,
Yeah, so I'd say that it's moving forward.
all right.
Yes.
I just wanted to bring back up what we talked about last year about trying to make sure we integrate Office for Aging and DSS and try to make sure they all are coming together around that idea.
It's not really a question, but yesterday at that opiate task force meeting, Julie talked about at Unitego High School on Thursday the 15th, the presentation that's going to be at the health fair, where they have, I guess, a trailer and a presentation on recognizing signs of opiate use in the house. It's supposed to be really good.
Yeah.
It's going to be given that night for people that can't make it to the health fair. It's 3:15, and I said stop the presentation will be at 6 or 6:30. So I did want to bring that up. Go to it. It might be a good idea if you can speak next month, because our meeting is right before that health fair, and they were still getting vendors together.
Any other questions? I don't know if many of you may be aware, we very recently received a resignation from Jimmy Dower, a longtime coroner, 30-plus years, due to health reasons primarily. So I'd like to thank him for his service, first of all. Maybe we'll prepare a resolution for our next meeting to that effect, but we have to discuss how we want to deal with that replacement. I know there were discussions in the past about maybe in this day and age, we may not need 4 coroners and dropping to 3.
Absolutely, no, that'll be a good topic for this month, now that we have that news.
Is that an election?
It is
They all are,
Yeah, those are all elected.
Does that have to go for a referendum then?
That would, yes, we'd have to just look into that and see what it entails. It probably would require that, because it's an elected position.
Okay.
So it'd be quite detailed, but it's something that has been discussed and, might be a good opportunity to look at it a little further. Anything else? Thank you. Solid waste. Mr. Representative McCarty.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. We met on February 20th. Jordan Clements was in from Soil and Water. He went over a bunch of grants that he was applying for, an Ag 9 Point source grant, putting together a plan for round 24, a climate residual grant to February 26th, the Upper Susquehanna Coalition RCP grant, the watershed grant, Farmland Protection Committee met, and they came up with a job description for the Ag implementation specialist. We discussed the Ag plastic collection will be Thursday, May 10th, in Cooperstown, Oneonta, Saturday, May 12th, Cooperstown again on October 11th, and Oneonta on October 13th. We also mentioned a cover crop and soil health that's going to be held in SUNY College on May 2nd from 10 to 2:30. He's accepting orders for trees, shrubs program, and fish program. We approved a inner circle agreement with Soil and Water and for the Ag plastic collection, the amount of $13,700. Karen gave an explanation of the Ag and market law. We approved inclusion of the land within the existing agricultural district for 30 days enrollment. Karen gave an update of the solid waste, the recycling, the e-waste, the mattress, and she also gave an update regarding the soil waste management plan, noting that January 31st she met with the haulers. Open meeting were held February 13th, 14th, and the public comment period ends March 18th. Karen stated that she noted had received an update regarding PACE financing. We'll hear about that later, I'm sure. She also drafted a letter of interest party regarding impact from adjoining county project. Has been, and sent that out to other counties so Otsego County could be aware of any potential industry that's developing outside of this county and possibly impacting anything in this county, for example, the gas companies. We went into executive session to discuss the multi-jurisdiction, multi-hazard mitigation plan, and we moved to approve that after executive session. And we had a little conversation about cooperative extension joining Soil and Water, and we will meet again on March 19th, 9 o'clock at the Meadows. questions.
What time?
9 o'clock.
Thank you. Representative
I just
Shen.
have a quick question. So within your conversation with the Cornell Cooperative Extension joining SWEC, what do you think? Because we're in Health and Ed and we keep wondering what we're gonna do with that. So what do you guys think?
Well,
We
we're kinda in
discussed.
between. We're kinda, you know, leaning that way a little bit, but I think it's up to how we can change that. We're looking
Yeah.
probably for direction from the county attorney.
Yeah,
And we asked Don.
We have to change the bylaws.
hold on, yeah. It'd be part of a bylaw change and, you know, and also in consultation with Cooperative Extension to see where they think they best belong. They have a foot in each door, so.
Right, yeah.
So what door you wanna go in?
Well, with you, sir.
We've been there before.
No, I don't have any reason to not be satisfied with this subcommittee. As you say, Mr. Chairman, Mr. Chairman, we do have a foot in each door with the 4-H program, probably is a nice fit with health and education. But in as much as ag economic development is such a big piece of the conversation in this county, putting us with SWEC and with soil and water in the sense that we can have a larger conversation probably would be a good move.
But there is so much education part going on, 4-H, and that don't really fit into solid waste and environmental concern.
I would be happy to report to both committees.
That's why I'm thinking, well, without a bylaw change, you can still report to SWEC right now on those issues, but
Sure.
remain where you are, because there are other issues. Economic development is also an IGA issue. You're gonna find yourself
Yeah.
I can
touching
be
a
there
lot
too.
of, you have a lot of tentacles,
And
you
you
know?
have come and reported
That's
to
true,
us,
but
which we
that's the
appreciate.
conversation is what's the best fit.
Yeah.
We could put them in a lot of places, but
I mean, for
what's
our,
best, it seems, especially with grants and things like that, a lot of that goes through soil and water, grants that he's applying for, soil and water, things that they're going together. The educational component is certainly there, but,
And we've had grants for educational
correct.
specialists to go out to the farms and stuff as well.
And historically,
Still
it
have-
is education.
Right.
Historically, it's there. Representative Lamb.
just a reminder that our ag committee is looking for more representation from our fellow county board colleagues. That's kind of an opportunity to get all of it, the 4-H, the ag economic development, the environmental, conservation aspect of agriculture, and then kind of the more like crop and soil science aspect. And we kind of discuss all of it from month to month, depending on key projects. It'll also be a chance for you guys to hear from the ag implementation specialist once they start, because that's whether they will be or Don will be there speaking on their behalf.
So, we're still not.
Well,
It's a discussion for the whole board.
I would just suggest that if you, I'm happy to stay in health and education. I think it's a terrific committee that's true to our mission. But I, certainly if you, am I invited to
Yes, you're
participate?
invited.
I will put that on my calendar and we'll do that as well. So I'm happy to do that because I understand I can only report to one committee, correct?
Well, and Meg pointed out at our SWEC discussion that part of the decision would be where is the budget for cooperative extension coming out of? And maybe that could help inform the decision. Maybe we could figure out what component, how much is education and how much is more just agricultural focused, and figure out, you know, if it's 50-50, fine, we'll just keep it where it is, but if it's more the agriculture component, the budget aspect, then that might be a better home for it. So it's
Just
a
that there's
question I have
refreshments at SWEC.
That's a donut.
Representative Kutnick.
This all excuse me, this all started because I discovered that a corporate extension is one of the very, very few agencies that we deal with that are named in the bylaws as belonging to a particular committee. For some reason that I'm sure is historic, you know, from a long time ago. And one of the ways we can deal with it is just take them out of bylaws and let him go wherever he wants, you know? And I would certainly hope though, Don, that you'd start looking to us at SWEC for the things that are more focused on agriculture. And if you don't mind being split, that might be the way to do it.
Well, we're not gonna solve this today, but something.
And come to IGA when you have economic development.
Because it changed, it requires a change in the bylaws. That's why we can't solve it.
Get the money out, whatever at stake, that's a parent committee, and just report to both committees. Friend of the court.
On a different topic, I did want to add something that Jordan had brought up. He introduced a intermunicipal approach to managing flooding issues between town and counties, highway departments, and a kind of interjurisdictional cooperation to like kind of address stream flooding and be more proactive about addressing stream projects rather than having a reactionary approach whereby you apply for competitive grants. He introduced that program. It has been successful in Chemung and Steuben County, and has been speaking to various county representatives about the program in a very introductory tone. And during SWEC, Jordan brought up the possibility of having Mr. Mark Watts, the district manager from the Chemung County Soil and Water Conservation District, to come speak to us in April and present a brief overview and kind of like a refresher and a training program on Chemung County Stream Program. And we thought that it would be pretty educational and helpful for us to kind of take a look at.
Not that Karen has to say anything, I just wondered if there was any feedback or reaction to the public comments. You don't have to say anything, but I just.
Public comments that were made this
Earlier,
morning?
yes, made
I
this
just
morning.
gave him my phone number and told him I'd love to talk to him, so.
Okay. That was it.
Did Jordan talk any more about upcoming trainings for like town highway crews? He does the stream bank stuff, and he had mentioned some last year that he was setting some up for the beginning of this year.
He came to a county town highway superintendent meeting back in, was it December? We did it? I think so.
Last year I knew the dates.
And
This year I
mentioned
don't.
to them that they was gonna try to set something up for this spring, so.
Yeah, I was just wondering, because next week I go to this week, to my town board meetings, and I usually mention to them there so that the highways can avail themselves of that training.
I would assume he probably sent out notices if he's done, but
Anything else? We got your time, so admin, Representative Kennedy.
So by the time, thank you, Mr. Chairman, we do admin, you've heard many details from all of the committees that have reported. And I would like to just refer you to the admin minutes. There's a complete breakout on the CDBG program with tiny homes. And you can find more detail there. I do want to make sure that I mention at least 3 very important approvals that we did, and one was the Ag Implementation Specialist, $25,000 for Cornell Cooperative. We did approve that. Also very important, we reappointed Bruce Maxon as Public Defender, so that's another appointment that you should all be aware of. And we also, at admin, on the 21st, kind of initiated the process to replace the Director of Veteran Services on a very accelerated schedule, which led to us having to interview 5 candidates at our special IGA meeting on the 27th. Afterwards, we stayed and interviewed with Penny's help and Jack 5 candidates, which we narrowed down to 2, which we had a joint kind of get-together this morning where we interviewed the 2 remaining candidates, the 2 final candidates, and Jack, we're happy to tell you that we then had another admin meeting, and we do have a name for you, and the board is happy to announce that we have chosen Dennis Clark as your successor. So thank you very much for your service. Thank you for helping move this process along, and we thank you very much.
You're welcome.
I'm sure that's under adequate, that is not adequate.
That is
but
fine. That's fine.
That's
Thank
what
you.
we have. Moving along for other things that we did in admin. Heidi Bond did come in for a budget modification, but the main thing I would like to pull forward from that discussion was that on April 6th and 7th, they're doing a Living Healthier exposition at Foothills Performance Center, and that is of note. We talked about needs to reclassify positions and caseworkers, so details are in the minutes. The moving along the hiring with the parent committee approval for temporary employees. Karen's CDBG and OCR explanation is there also. I know this is notable, but Jody Taylor has a new cell phone and it's a smartphone. His flip phone died and we had to do a budget mod to get him up to speed with a new smartphone. So he's joining the ranks of technology, pushing everyone forward. We had the treasurer come for multiple interludes in between all the other people coming, but we did approve of an appraisal for the Unadilla Clinic and also moving some pieces of property into Section 8 in the real property division. We approved the financing over 5 years for the equipment that Bill Mason was talking about today, and then we actually we discussed what equipment would be part of that and decided to stick within the budget and go with only for financing the $600,000 per year over 5 years. Ellen kept apprised us of where we are on the opioid lawsuit, and we had discussed having a law firm to come and do an informational session. And are we good with the 28th as scheduled?
We've got two law firms that we talked about are going to come on March 28th.
Do we have a time?
We're waiting for a time from you, Meg.
Oh, okay. Beg your pardon?
In the minutes, you had 1 p.m. but
1 p.m.? Oh,
Is it
okay.
1
If it was 1 p.m. in the minutes, then we'll stick with 1 p.m. Okay. We also are sending our new deputy treasurer, Andrew Christman, to finance school. And I'm happy to take any questions. Although I did tell Art Klingler I really didn't want to be getting any more of those emergency services messages, but they keep coming. So I don't know if I'll have to. Anyway, I appreciate the information. Any questions?
Just a comment, I wanted, the two finalists for the Veteran Services Officer, they were both outstanding. Either one would serve as well as difficult decision, and they both had strengths that.
Agreed. And thanks to
Thank
Penny
the committee for their
also,
work
for
and
Penny and Jack.
For his work.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Any questions?
I just had a question in the discussions, and I'm hoping I didn't read it incorrectly. But in our PSLA meeting, the sheriff came to visit and we talked about jail renovations. And at that time, the price was $1.5 million. And then I thought I saw in the admin minutes $5 million.
I have.
So that was a large jump in the millions to reach out.
If you want to do everything recommended in the LaBella report, you need to set $5 million aside.
Okay.
We put $500,000 in the budget this year. We're looking at financing another $1 million, 3 or 4 year project to get up to that $5 million. So they are the same numbers, just broken out into pieces.
So the actual plan is to over time spend $5 million?
If everybody approves, this year we've only approved spending $500,000, but we're looking at another $1 million on financing to do major 1, 2, correct me if I'm wrong, Pete, because he hasn't come to me about it, 2 of the dorms.
That is correct.
And to replace the rooftop units.
Yeah,
So,
rooftop units.
so.
I've also asked Doug to verify that the trunk lines to the sprinkler is included in that, so that we don't go back.
I thought that those were in the studies on the water and the septic. I thought that
They are.
others. I thought that was included in
They
something
are.
that was getting done this year.
Doug is, yeah. Yep.
Okay, anything else?
Oh, our next meeting, 3/21 at 9 AM.
Okay, special committees, negotiations. Representative Frazier?
Yeah, we've been very active. We've met multiple times with both the corrections union and the CSEA. Both are doing well, I believe, at this stage. We have, our next meeting with corrections is on March 29th, and we have 2 meetings set up with CSEA. One is next week on the 13th, and the other one is the 28th of this month.
Thanks, I know you've been spending a lot of time there. Performance review and goal setting. Representative Krugman.
Yes, again, feel free to read the minutes. We discussed a number of issues. I pulled out 3 things I thought might interest the board at this point. We're continuing our plans to find someone to do goals training, goals setting and pursuing measurable goals as a department head is something that we're working toward in both in terms of the performance reviews, which we do every other year, and also perhaps as part of a merit part of the salary system. So we certainly need to have training in creating measurable goals, and that's the key. Penny has, and her staff have created a extensive compensation survey that she sent out to other counties that are comparable to us. And how many we got back? Have we got?
We have about half back. I would say we have maybe 10 or so back. We have a deadline, I believe, of the 21st of March to be able to just basically finalize everything. Everything's out on a spreadsheet. And what you will have, and I'll bring it to PRGS on Thursday, I believe we meet.
Tomorrow, yeah.
Or tomorrow's Thursday, oh, there you go. So I'll bring it there, and you'll see that what we have is a bar graph for every M&C position, and we'll have each of the various counties represented on there that have responded. But we're still hopeful. There's 3 or 4 more that said that they will get the survey results back to us within, the next week or so. But we had 2 big civil service annual reports due, and everybody was focused on doing that in all of the counties. And so now they're switching gears, and they're trickling in, so.
Great. Half isn't bad
No,
for a
not
survey
at all.
like that, and if you're getting even more than that, that's good. And the third thing is that we really are going to focus on creating that salary scale, the perpetual salary scale that we've been talking about so long, ourselves rather than, and we kind of set aside the idea of again, looking for a consultant to do that, which starts us out $50,000 a head. Questions? Oh, next meeting is tomorrow at 9 AM.
I would just say thanks for agreeing to take it on yourselves.
Yeah, it would be easier to just throw money at someone and say, do it for us. Yeah. Thanks very much for Penny's help. She's just been invaluable.
Yes, thanks.
Agreed. Okay, ad hoc technology and strategic planning. Representative Marietta.
We're moving forward with a very simple survey that would go out internally to the Board of Representatives and all department heads. Just asking folks to revisit the strategic prioritization plan. So Danny put together some draft questions which we discussed at the meeting, and Brian has set it up, and the survey should be going out shortly. It does have links in it so people can open up the strategic prioritization plan directly, because we're thinking that some people haven't looked at it in a while, but really the goal of this survey is first of all, to ask people, are there things in the plan that they've accomplished or are working on currently? That's one question, and then what are their priorities, and are they, according to the plan, you know, what are the priorities that we can kind of connect back to that are in the plan, and are they budgeted for in 2018? And then the third question is more so, is there something missing from the plan that is a priority for them? So just trying to collect some of that information that our committee will then utilize, and then break out to the other committees, you know, just trying to keep the plan living, breathing document, kind of keep that coordination with the committee chairs and make the most of that plan, and try to make the committee's lives, or the committee chairs' lives easier in utilizing that document. And then, do you mind if I just talk briefly about the IDA?
No, go ahead.
So I just, a couple quick things. I'm trying to forward documents as they come in to me related to the IDA. So there's just what Danny had just asked a little bit ago about those reports, which have been shared at IGA, but I did just forward the two most recent kind of technically approved reports that really from January, February, once they go to the IDA board, we as reps can post them and share them publicly. I think you know, Jody would like those reports to, before, like say, there's one right now in development that he keeps tabs of his activities and everything for March, but he would not like that to be publicly released until the IDA board meeting and that's approved. So just so everyone's aware, those reports, as they get approved, obviously I'll forward them to everybody, and we can, you know, do whatever we want in terms of sharing with our own constituents. I also forwarded the budget for the IDA, and that's coming out of the Finance Committee, or the Audit and Finance Committee, and so I think that will be of interest to everybody, because honestly, I don't ever remember, other than what's publicly posted on the IDA website, I don't ever remember us kind of getting the budget information. So we'll you know, hopefully that'll be of value to everyone, kind of seeing their ongoing budget and the financial information that's being updated monthly from the IDA. And then they're, just in general, you know, they're dealing, I would say, with kind of ongoing transition with Jody coming in. I mean, that's really the best way to describe, including that the railroad yards hearing. I mean, if for those who aren't familiar with why that hearing had to take place, they actually had transferred that property to another holding company, set up a separate holding company. They needed to transfer the property back to the IDA because of tax issues, because the IDA you know, basically can be tax, or is tax exempt. So the railroad yards actually were being held by a property that made the property subject to taxes. So, you know, while they're trying to develop that property, obviously they don't want to be burdened with paying the tax impact on it. And I guess only one person showed up to the hearing, so just for anyone's, it was Barbara Ann Egan from the Otsego County Chamber. But otherwise, I think their minutes, the reports Jody's putting together are pretty helpful. I think the only other thing that would be of interest that people might want to put on their calendar, and I assume this would be open to any of us, is 10RR, which is a new business, and they're down in the Oneonta Business Park, and they're doing a grand opening on March 22nd, 6:30 to 8:30. And I'll forward the email to everybody, and you'll see there's an RSVP email on there, and I'm sure it'd be great to have a good turnout from the Board of Representatives to come to that opening. They're going to kind of showcase their facility, and I think a lot of people are aware of what they do, but they're building these kind of okay, Gary's shaking his head, but kind of luxury camping sites. Yeah, so they actually are leasing a facility and are building they're going to be producing these kind of luxury packaged campsites that are being set up all throughout New York, but I'm sure the market obviously is much broader than that, and I think they're kind of estimating employing about 20 people. So
6:30, 8:30. AM?
6:30 PM to 8:30 PM, yeah. No, it says come get some, or enjoy some brews and food, so hopefully not 6:30 AM.
Sometimes it's a tough
I'll forward that to everybody right now.
Okay, good.
Just have a question on that. So that's, as I understand it, Tensar, they build this on private property, and then kind of like,
Yeah,
a private person rents it out.
yeah, Airbnb too, I mean,
Right,
that's the
so
market.
my mind is thinking bed tax,
But that's a great question,
you know,
yeah.
because they're gonna be
They
advertising.
shift them out. I think they're portable, that was why they
No,
wanted to
they
be
build
down
them
by
on
the
a platform, there's a
Yeah.
platform, you get this whole package.
Yeah,
and
this
they
is the
have a-
kit, they're building
Yeah.
the kits, yeah.
There's some-
So-
Where is this meeting? Your
The-
presentation?
It's at their facility that they're opening. What I'm gonna forward to you is the
So
open.
have it all in there?
Yeah, yep, yeah, Pony Farm, yeah.
Oh, okay. All right.
So it's glamping.
Yeah,
It's
glamping, yeah.
a big trend in camping.
Yeah.
And,
Really?
Yeah.
I don't know if they're subject to bed tax or not. We have
That's what the question
We
was.
have a glamping site in the town of Butternut.
No, once they're prepared,
It's a wedding venue.
Yeah.
But I do know that we asked about the Pittsburgh part,
Yeah, but they're-
whether the bed tax,
So somebody to the floor, please.
sorry. Just, Cook's Runners Park asked the treasurer Crowell at the time if we needed to pay bed tax for our campsite. And we were told no. We're
But
not-
that's a
not for-
municipal site,
Right.
as
That
opposed to a
campsite.
private owner.
So I don't know the answer, but.
Because we did kind of the same thing with the Dreams Park, and because it was a restricted group of people that were allowed to attend that, the answer was no bed tax. But if you're advertising, so anyway, in your spare time, Ellen, I'm sure.
Well, the one thing, going back, Kathy, to your point earlier, is that if they're using Airbnb, they're automatically collecting, I would assume, bed tax on
Oh,
that.
they would be, I just looked at the Tent RR website yesterday because I saw it on Facebook. And individual properties, there was some in East Meredith, Davenport, Omegang is advertising just on the Tent RR. There was a link to it, so it wasn't like Airbnb or anything, it was the individual.
Okay.
I think there's two sites
Yeah,
up
that's
at
another-
Omegang that were, by the way, $300 a night. For a tent.
Close to the beer.
With a chemical toilet.
Very glamorous camp.
Okay,
Maybe it was free beer, I didn't read that.
Free fire inspection.
special reports, any of the various committees or boards that people go to? Land Bank, et cetera, have anything to report?
Land Bank, we met on Thursday up in Mohawk, Thursday the 1st. Moving ahead at a snail's pace, but we are going forward on that. They're in the middle of having an audit done for their Paris auditing, and Bonadio is doing the work, so they were the ones that we had last summer. Everything seems to be compliant as yet, but just very, that's taken away some of their focus from doing their other projects. But the money is coming in at a better pace, and they have a project manager now. And we're working on regularizing some of the policies that you could give one of the foreclosing governmental units a letter with Ellen, we'll be going through this with you, to give to a person who wanted to donate a property to the land bank. So the policies are kind of gelling. They have made some acquisitions up in the Mohawk Valley. So far, we're still working with Oneonta City, and we have not gotten anything into the land bank from Otsego County yet, but
Have a
we'll
property in Cher Valley that may be
we're working
potential.
on that donation.
Richfield, you know.
Yes, the Richfield one is the one that triggered the donation letter development, so.
So when we say we haven't gotten one in, is it because we are lacking in some part of the application at our end, or is it just that we're just selecting ones from the Mohawk Valley?
No, I think, I really am not prepared to answer that question. I don't wanna stigmatize anyone, everyone's working very hard, I don't know. That would just be my answer.
So I guess then my follow-up question would be if they have a policy established to how you select properties, because when we were discussing it, originally we talked about would we, after joining this, they were eager for us to join, how far down the line would we be when they prioritize? And it seems, but if they could.
Well, no, they're very,
respond.
we're working on it. I think it's just a work in progress. I don't think that we're being excluded from the ones that they're working on. I think it's just a matter of getting everything set up and into a process whereby our properties can be assessed and looked at and chosen. I really don't think that they're deliberately being put at the bottom of anybody's list. I think that we're just, I will try and come up with language that will explain this better at our next meeting.
Okay, because I'm just looking, if they have 10 properties looking to be in it, are they gonna wait, assess them all, and then pick the ones they're going to work on based on the entire pool, or how they do it?
And I don't know.
I mean, it's been a couple years since we joined that, and even before we joined it, we did an inventory of the county. And I know there were a couple in Umatilla, vacant properties, needed work, that are still sitting, nobody's doing anything with, they're asking, when is the land bank taking these? So I mean, if it isn't the intent, that should come back to us.
No, I do believe.
You understand what?
I
mean,
do,
just-
and I have to have that conversation with the director and with the board to say, how much do we have to actively put them forward, or are they going to come looking for them?
I guess that's
That's
the question.
where
right there.
we would,
We still need to ask about that, or are they still on the list?
yeah, I think that we would, and I will find out the answer to that question.
I would suspect there's an application that has to be made in the first place, they're just not gonna all just randomly
Well-
pick property out of this.
Well, they came to.
They came.
They came.
Yes, in your
They-
municipality, and our assessors brought them some
Right.
pictures and photos and
Yeah.
history and everything.
Karen, you
for
have
them
that
to-
list, that whole big list still, we're still in the
They're
process.
still sitting there, they're anticipating that somebody's gonna come and take them, they want to fill them over, but there hasn't been anything coming back, information or anything.
Those
They
are
just asked
very
me
good
last night,
questions.
maybe they wanted that stuff, so.
Yes,
I just wanted to say that as kind of part of this whole process, the treasurer, Alan Ruffles, and he was there in person in Herkimer County, and I was on the phone, and we talked to them about their process, like once a property is approved by Land Bank, how we're gonna go through the process so that the treasurer's office is ready to go. But I guess, yeah, there's the gap between what we've got and getting it approved. But once it's approved, then I think we've got our process pretty well set up here.
Okay. So I'll work on how to expedite that process of getting a property into the land bank.
Okay.
I didn't have a question about that, sorry, can I?
oh, yeah,
I just, I thought, Cornell Cooperative Extension, obviously I'm the appointing board member, but since Don's here, can I ask Don just to, if you wanted to, in like 1 minute, highlight anything for
Sure.
Cornell?
1 minute.
Well, you caught me off
Thanks,
guard. We are working with our dairy field crop team, and has now added a livestock educator. I think the one thing everyone should be aware of, this milk pricing situation has become a real crisis. And there are a lot of organizations, affiliates of Cornell, which are very much concerned about the mental health of dairy producers. And so you might be very sensitive to that and keep your eyes open, your ears open, I should say. If you should detect some issues going on with your dairy farmers, please find the means to have them reach out to some professional help, because this is not going to change in the foreseeable future. So I think that's the big news. We're treading along, doing what we're doing. I'm here, of course, on the Ag Implementation Specialist, which will represent the agricultural agencies in the county. And I think for that matter, I'll quit. I'll just advise you, I was just notified that Schoharie County has now declared a state of emergency at 1 o'clock this afternoon. I don't know whether they're getting snow now or they anticipate getting it pretty soon, but we probably should all be alert to the weather's coming. So thank you.
Last report I heard, it was staying more to the east of us than south, so they were downgrading, right?
what I gotta
Yeah. Okay, if there's nothing else, maybe we can take a short break. And we'll get back and get to the rest of the agenda.
Thank you, Parker.
Okay, we're all refreshed now.
You got to watch some snowfall.
I just want to tell you that in light of the weather, our labor council was not able to come out today, so we're postponed the board training once again.
I said that today. I'm like, I bet you.
Now, so I ended up getting pizza for my office, but sorry.
Well, can I ask for an executive session then at the end of the year for personnel reasons?
At the end of the meeting or now?
At the end of the meeting, fine.
Okay. Certainly, I'll just try to remember that on here. Okay, so next order of business, a motion to dispense with the reading of all resolutions. Second.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained? Yeah, Dan and Adrian disappeared suddenly.
Looking for the pizza.
They were here just a minute ago.
Well, Carol, I'm sorry, it wasn't your fault.
All right, motion approved. Anyone liking to pull any resolutions?
Resolution 110.
Okay, any others? 116. Any others?
Did I miss one?
95.
Does 109 have to be pulled with 110 or no?
That's, I think, covered under, no. The lead resolution B will be for the plow trucks. This was, we had to define in this resolution 109, we had to define the vendor. I believe that's, let me just check to see if that's in there.
I'm sorry, Pete, which one are you looking at?
I'm looking at pulling 110.
Okay, so far we have 95, 110, and 116.
We also have the typo on page 9. I don't think it needs to be pulled, but it says the heading is misspelled Delta Engineering, and the body is spelled Delta.
Okay, I don't, that doesn't need to be pulled.
Thank you for that. We pushed as hard as we could to get them all out on Thursday with the storm advancing, so.
I've never misspelled anything
Dan, I'm gonna send them all to you for proofreading now.
So can you read off which ones we did, 95?
95, 110, 116. What was it, right? Okay, hearing no others, then a motion to approve the consent agenda.
So moved.
Second,
Second.
roll call vote. Any discussion on anything?
No, you
Discussion on consent, correct, mistake.
Frazier?
Aye.
Barwell?
Aye.
Clark? Aye. Stanley?
Aye.
Kennedy?
Aye.
O'Bracker?
Aye.
Bliss?
Aye.
Marietta?
Yes.
McCarty?
Aye.
Wilbur?
Aye.
Koenig?
Aye.
Martini?
Aye.
Lappin?
Aye.
Shannon?
Aye.
Okay, 6,228 ayes, 0 noes, 0 abstentions. Motion, or consent agenda passed. Okay, resolution number 95.
Yes, we need a motion to, and I'm hoping that Representative Stammel will do this, that is, when you look at the first line of the resolution, it says resolved that the Otsego County Superintendent of Highways, that should be the Otsego County Board Chair.
So I could make that motion, that we strike the words superintendent of highways in the first line of the resolution and replace it with board chair.
Any discussion? So first we need to vote on the motion as amended.
No, you're amending.
No, to amend.
To accept the amendment. I'm sorry, I misspoke. To accept the amendment. I need to do a roll call. Because this is a monetary.
Frazier.
Aye.
Farwell.
Aye.
Clark. Aye. Stammel.
Aye.
Kennedy.
Aye.
Overactor.
Aye.
Bliss.
Aye.
Marietta.
Yes.
McCarty. Wilbur.
Aye.
Schottenick.
Aye.
Martini.
Aye.
Lappin.
Aye.
Shannon.
6,228 ayes, 0 noes. Resolution 95A has been amended. Now, vote on as amended.
So moved.
Craig.
Don't need that. Roll call vote.
Frazier.
Aye.
Farwell.
Aye.
Clark. Aye. Stammel.
Aye.
Kennedy.
Aye.
Overactor.
Aye.
Bliss.
Aye.
Marietta.
Yes.
McCarty.
Aye.
Wilbur.
Aye.
Schottenick.
Aye.
Martini.
Aye.
Lappin.
Aye.
Shannon.
6,228 ayes, 0 noes. Resolution 95 is passed.
Resolution 110, amending Resolution 73 of 2017, 0201, approving superintendent of highways to purchase automotive parts and equipment. Overactor, McCarty, Wilbur, Farwell, Lappin.
So what we are looking at doing is adjusting the not to exceed amount from, we're reducing it from 475,000 to 406, and we are also being more defined in our payee as Gillies Auto Truck and Marine, and we are also being more defined in that Public Works will be looking at these invoices for said purchases on a month-to-month basis moving forward.
That may require more than just an amendment.
So this is for 17, there's a late resolution for 18.
This one's
Oh,
for
did I-
17.
So did we overspend
So this
17?
one is so,
We
this
were
one-
adjusting 17 from 380, but they, yeah, from 380,000, it was going up to 475, to adjust paying of the bills in December, I believe. He wanted all the money instead of adding just the amount that we were looking to cover our parts bill in December, if I'm correct. Did I pull that for the wrong reason?
I'm a little confused.
I thought I was pulling Resolution 110 because it directly spoke to us paying our parts bills at Gillies, or for Gillies.
So this one involves 2017, because the budget was 380, but the bills came in at 475, is that correct?
If there's more bills to pay, I don't know if it comes to 475, but
But
yes,
it's-
we
it's
still
more
over
than-
December.
So that one was to deal with the budget for 2017. Late resolution C is talking about 2018.
Moving for 2018,
And
okay.
that's the one that we discussed today.
So then I would recommend I pull mine.
Can you unpull it?
No.
So it doesn't need to be amended, we just want to discuss it.
Vote on it as is.
As
As
presented.
As discussed.
475,000, that's what you're saying?
Yeah.
Well, I have a question.
Hold on. Yeah, let's have a second first.
I'll second it.
Okay. And Wilbur, Representative Wilbur first. So it appears we don't need to modify this, maybe we just need to fully explain so people can vote in an educated manner.
My first question is, where did we get the extra 95,000 out of 2017 budget?
It sounds about right. I think it was 80,000 and some change that came in December from Gillies for the parks, for bills. So we needed to
We need to
adjust.
increase the 380 to 475.
Right.
The question is, where is that 95,000 coming from?
My impression was it was coming out of 18.
But it's been approved, huh?
I thought that's what we talked about today, that it would come out of 18 to cover that. No?
No, that's for January.
No, I understand that. I thought December was mixed in there too. December was not mixed in there today?
Was it 2018? No.
Okay.
Right.
So unless there's a budget transfer, some place to get that 95,000.
Because we're budget out there.
You would have more, because the money might have already been swept from other accounts. You don't have 470, whatever, 75,000. We only have.
So we have a dilemma.
Got him?
Yes.
You're on the hot seat.
This resolution, we need to change it from 380 to pay the parts bills from 2017. So it's $95,000. The question is where'd that 95,000 come from? Did they transfer something in 2017?
No, go find out.
Yeah, or is it coming out of 2018? We've got outstanding bills for the total amount they paid for the year, roughly must be around 95,000. Yeah, if you did a transfer in 2017,
It says that
I
it's
don't know.
included in the 2017 budget.
Line item, it was going into our parts, which is the 4540.
You might have took it out of two different.
He made, didn't we have two parts? For parts, and I believe Richard talked about bringing out of the one parts, which could be even some of the equipments that we buy, lawnmowers and things of that nature, and moving it in there to cover the Gillies bill.
You don't have to have that.
No, I don't think it's covered. I don't think it's covered right now. You mean PSOA, right?
No.
Yeah, PSOA. I'm sorry, Public Works. I don't think we went into that yet. I don't remember.
I don't want to say the money in the paving fund or whatever.
I don't believe so.
Okay, thank you.
I don't believe there was. Or at least we didn't discuss that.
The minutes just basically state that Bill Mason requests approval of amend resolution number 73, blah, 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 not to exceed 475,000 for 5130-45, the Board of DM Parks. Representative Wilbur moved for approval. After discussion, Representative Wilbur withdrew his motion. After further discussion, Representative Wilbur moved for approval, and then it was seconded, and you guys voted on it.
But it didn't go into that depth, right?
There's not any detail there, yeah.
I don't remember any detail on it. Well, last meeting, so we somehow missed that.
Well, it looks like, I mean,
And there's no budget.
It says in the.
you withdrew your motion originally.
Yeah, it's not- I don't see it.
They must have said something more, right? Bill must
What
have
was the
given
amount
more.
that was?
I'm thinking there was another
Right
parts.
down here, it says the funding for this expenditure is included in the
Right at
2017 highway
95,000,
budget.
it's gotta come from
Line
somewhere.
45.
Wasn't in that budget.
So then evidently it was
It
not.
would have had to have been done by a budget mod.
How much is left?
but they're saying there's not
Right.
enough coverage,
Where to start.
so it's not in there.
Maybe
Maybe that's,
Yeah, it would have had to be a budget mod
And
for that.
we're not sure that that's.
No.
So 380 was what was.
It was the cap then, so you have to.
This is the budget, this isn't what's.
So there's- But if,
good catch for somebody.
Oh, yeah.
Oh,
you know, $95,000,
You guys taking $95,000 out of this year's, it cuts it down
Yeah.
to 406.
I mean, it had to come from.
Someplace. Where did Pete,
He went down to check on it.
No, Pete's right there, he's trying to, I think he's trying to call.
So, well, it can't come out of the
according to the minutes, there's been no budget transfer. So at a minimum, in order to do that today, we would have to find the appropriate money. Someone would have to bring a motion from the floor to approve budget transfer prior to this. If indeed it needs to be paid today, which sounds like, I mean, this bill's outstanding from December, right? Well, I'd suggest while Andrew's researching that, we'll move on with the rest of the agenda. We'll table this. Okay, we're gonna table 110. And move on to, I got, back here, we're on 116.
Resolution 116, adopting budget transfer modification policy for the office of the treasurer in Otsego County, Kennedy, override for Fraser, Hilton, Stanmore, Party.
Second?
I asked that this be pulled. I don't know the reason for it, but the practical implication of it as I read it is that, you know, if you wanted to make a transfer of less than $20,000, you need parent committee approval only. All 14 members of this board have budgetary responsibilities and authority. And so just take human services, for instance. Meg and I could vote aye to let something proceed like that. 2 members of the board deciding for the 14 that we'll take money out of personnel to fund something else. And so we could, why don't we just give a lump sum then to the department and say, put it anywhere you want to, you know? You're gonna have to, I don't see that the process is burdensome now. It doesn't really, it shouldn't really require even a department head to come to admin. The treasurer can carry those requests. But I just think we all have budgetary authority. We shouldn't be ceding it to 2 members out of 14.
Any other comments?
I kind of agree with that synopsis as it's put. I mean, we can't seem to get rid of the resolution that allows department heads to hire funded positions that are vacant, but we're gonna allow them to move a lot of money. There's no limit on how much they can move.
How many times?
How many
You could do
times?
$19,000.
And I think that would, I don't want to say encourage, but would kind of permit, okay, I'll pump up my budget over here, but I really want it over here.
Representative Marietta.
I mean, my understanding of this process is that there is checks and balances built into it. You know, that the county treasurer is definitely kind of coordinating these requests. I mean, I think this goes back to the discussions that, you know, that led to the more improved process for filling vacant positions, you know, where it was, you know, a more cumbersome process, where it is more streamlined now, where they go and get the couple signatures that moves the process along. I mean, my understanding of this, you know, this kind of streamlining is that, if you go back to our committee meetings themselves, I mean, they're, as we all know, and strategic planning's talking about it, and performance review and goal setting's talking about it, there's a lot of other issues that we're not getting to in terms of, county business that is in a way being bogged down by some smaller, budget modifications and purchases that are in the budget that the treasurer's gonna sign off on, and that, I take this as that we're not gonna be out of the loop, but, that it's a, department heads understand they report to the committees, and the committee chair is the coordinator and kind of the chief person that should be having these discussions with the department head. So I guess what I'm trying to say is that, this is a way of better utilizing our time, better utilizing the department head's time, and, I would say we're still gonna ask questions and do our due diligence. I think to look at this as, somebody's gonna game the system is, I mean, people can game the system in a whole host of ways. This is a tool that will be helpful to us and helpful to department heads.
Can we put a dollar limit on it?
We could, hold on.
One of the reasons why I did vote in favor of this in committee was that it would only be acted upon verification from the treasurer. They would have to go to the treasurer first and obtain an account verification prior to submitting the request to the parent committee. And just so that, there would be the treasurer looking at it, that part of it.
I'd ask the county attorney to research the budgetary authority, because while in our county, the treasurer by default is the budget officer, that's not the job of the treasurer to set policy. To say, yes, there's money in that line, but how you spend that money resides with this body here.
Okay, because in the resolution.
There is a dollar amount, a dollar limit.
There is 20,000.
No, that's when you're proposing.
Oh, right, but we're proposing a dollar limit.
Yeah.
Representative Frazier has the floor.
So I think our first parent committee is about the second week of the month. So the earliest anybody could get parent committee to move 20 grand is the second week of the month. 2 weeks later, we're meeting here and approving it. So we are putting a roadblock of 2 weeks to move 20 grand in place. I mean, that's what you're telling me, that it's gonna be 2 weeks easier. I'm sure that we should have that oversight for 2 weeks. I don't think that's a major impetus to a department head, 2 weeks. I'm just not sure that 20 grand is where that cutoff should be. If you're gonna do something, maybe a lot lower, but I just think it's not that big of a roadblock for them to move 20 grand and to go to another committee and have it pass there, so.
I can see the need maybe for smaller amounts, maybe 20,000. Maybe we want to cut it down to like 5,000 and cap it on the year, 20,000, so that somebody doesn't continually game the system if they're, but do we need for, sometimes our budget transfers, I remember seeing come through for $117.
I like that idea.
Yeah, so maybe we could drop that down to a small amount with a yearly cap that would require something more.
I think it needs further discussion on that, what the cap would be, and because there'll be certain categories that we'll look at, say, personnel. I haven't had this person for 3 weeks, so there's extra money in there. But come the end of the year, something happens and there's not extra money in there, we're forced to take out a contingency to fill that when earlier in the year we might have made a non-mandatory purchase.
Correct.
I think it needs further fleshing out.
That's a good idea.
So, do we want to send it back to committee, or do we want to make modifications here?
For me, I'd still like Ellen's opinion on, there might be a statutory number that it's a certain percentage of the budget that you're moving, whatever, without.
I would prefer that it go back to committee.
Okay.
That would be my recommendation.
So do you want to pull it?
It's already pulled, so,
No, table it for discussion. You're the chief.
right, so
Okay.
I
Andrew?
can take it off the table.
Well, I am fine with it going back to committee. I think the main point here is that, you know, we have to change the way we're operating. I mean, I think that's pretty clear to the majority of people here, and this is an idea, you know, I think we have to embrace change, and, you know, we can't, I get the idea that this is an authority of ours, but to do all the things we need to do, we cannot manage all these different activities if we wanna get other things done. And I think that conversation has become clear, you know, over and over again, especially with some of the conversations that we keep having about some of the, you know, very big and important, you know, aspects of moving forward, from the jail to the public highway garage to, you know, all these things. I hate to get hung up on these kinds of things, because I think it's in our best interest and in the department head's best interest. Let it go back to committee for further discussion. I hope we don't kill it. That's all I'm trying to say.
Okay, so,
You know,
I'm sorry.
just in the back of my mind, I think one of the reasons was this, for example, with the highway department, was that repairs sometimes add up to $20,000 pretty quick. And, you know, they have to wait a month before they can fix it because they didn't have the proof. I mean, that, somewhere, I think that was brought up, that, you know, in the wintertime, you wanna wait a month before you fix the snowplow. I mean, that was,
Well,
that came up
but there's
somewhere.
emergency policy for that.
Well, there's kind of stipulation on the emergency clause of it there, you know, really, so, but that was part of the
Correct.
conversation at one point, so.
But that's paying a bill. I mean, that's paying a bill. We generally got 30 days to pay a bill, and you can move your money within the 30 days generally. If you have emergency repair come up to $20,000, we should be able to pay that bill 30 days later.
Correct.
Well, so I guess I would just put out there as an example of something that we're trying to avoid would be, and not that, I haven't had anything to do with this, I'm just trying to guess. But for example, today, we have a resolution that allows Jody to buy a cell phone because he didn't have the money, right? So we had $200 that had to go through 2 committees and then come to the board. So in terms of efficiency, maybe this dollar amount of $20,000 is too high. Maybe we could aggregate it over the, I mean, maybe it does deserve a second look, but I hope that we can get to something where we deal with some of these inefficiencies.
I mean, I guess, going off Michelle's point, I would ask a question is, has the, these kind of like budget mods and transfers, the process, has it been processed mapped, and whereby like you write down all the steps and exactly how long it takes, and have that kind of like a diagram, and then use that to receive input from department heads. I know that in Public Works, Doug Zerke's had issues when he had to repair the boiler that went, during a particularly cold winter weekend, and that was kind of an example of where something like this policy would be helpful. I like the idea of the cumulative aspect, but I would ask that, you know, like, department heads be polled before we set a cap, and that, so we can make sure that this is something that works for them too.
Again, a boiler would clearly classified as an emergency, and be allowed to repair that under the current policy.
Oh, I just wanted to add something and then it went out of my head and I hope that it comes back. Oh, that's horrible. I'm sorry, I really am. I should have written it down.
The old doesn't get any better, Jane. Till we table it.
Did it have anything to do with process maps and budget transfers or anything?
It did have some, oh, I know what it was,
There you go.
yes. Thank you, Penny. That department heads can currently, give their budget mods to the treasurer to present for them. So that is one way to cut back on having to drive up and come up and spend time waiting for admin to be ready for them. So that was my point. And, but I still am interested in pulling this back into committee, so just unsure of what the proper procedure would be to pull this away for today and bring
We
it
were
back.
just looking that up, under Rule 36, you can make a motion a second to withdraw the motion, and voice vote,
Oh,
and then reconsider.
okay, so I can do that as chair of the committee, is it?
Anyone
Okay.
can
So I would move to pull resolution 116.
withdraw.
Withdraw. Proper.
Second.
verb.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
I do have some more detail on the resolution 110.
Okay, we'll go back to 110.
So the 380,000 was budgeted in 2017 for the highway under parks. We had, at that time, in November, we had hit our budgetary amount of 380. There looked as though there was gonna be some more repairs needed for trucks coming in, as we found out in December. So in November 17th,
Now, it's my understanding, this is not,
It was,
it was talked about tonight.
it was the November 17th, was it voted on?
it
So
was,
it would have been in December's meeting. And when we-
But it would have been in their committee meeting first, and then December full board meeting. We can look up.
I have the Public Works Committee minutes.
Yeah, but you got the agenda.
It
had to be regular, been voted on here in December.
Yeah, we can look that up.
Is it 810 edition? He knows what he ordered at what price, how much now.
December 4th, 5th,
Yeah. You wanna remember this one? No, it's December
Should
one.
go by that
Yeah,
now, what
we'll
we
go-
spent.
went through committee in November.
Yeah,
Yeah.
because
Right. He may have been
Was,
reading
wasn't he?
November minutes when he said that.
So the other question is, you had to buy some parts after the deadline of November 17th for things. You should have ordered them and known what they cost. What's the aggregate number of bills, because the convention is that maybe they're not all in even yet. Will this, if you do amend it, cover that?
Okay, that's,
December
December should be all in, like 3 months, they bill every month.
So it was approved, budget modification was approved in the December meeting for 80,000.
On top of the 380, so 460?
So that's 460.
so that's, like I said, so
Was that resolution 73 of 2017?
No,
no,
because that would
that was
change.
No, it would have been close to 300. 362. Resolution
That's
Well, we need a modify, right, that one, right? So I guess we need to.
Or, I'm sorry, 80,000. 80,000.
Still looking at 475.
Yeah, it takes you to
How much
460.
money is the current bill without the?
80,000, 460.
We could authorize
460.
460.
Yeah, let's do what we can do.
We could ask Andrew what's left, if anything, in 2017 in the stone. I mean, how much do
If
we
you don't know what's
really
been
need?
swept, what's left in asphalt and stone at this point in time?
It's probably swept, you're right. So it's 80 grand that we have. It's more, 80 grand more.
The treasurer out
If that resolution's already been made, we don't even need to,
Yeah.
But 80,000 is not gonna be enough, right?
I don't know that.
Peter, what, did you say something about $406,000? What was that?
That's what the
That's
budget is.
2018.
I was,
Oh, okay, all right.
I was
That had
totally
nothing to do with
confused with
this, okay.
this resolution and the one that we got coming in.
Okay.
Late resolution's got the 460
Okay.
for this year.
All right.
Do you know what the actual Gillies bill that they're looking to pay is?
If memory serves me correct, it was like 84,000 for December, okay? And then in January and February,
But that's this year's money.
that's this year's
Compare
money.
that to the one.
that's
We
not
don't
an
need to
issue.
worry about that.
But it was about 84,000, is what I remember in that general. I-
Would you like to? Let's, well, we can't do anything about that anyway. So I would suggest, if we're gonna pay, it's already been approved to transfer 460,000, so if we,
Why don't you do the late resolution, give Andrew a chance to come back up, see what he finds out.
Is he still looking?
I think so, he hasn't told anybody anything.
Yeah, he was still down there.
okay, right, okay. Oh,
Otherwise, you could approve 460, yes.
right.
Okay.
we'll table that and go back. We did 116, we're done, so now we go to late resolutions. Okay, if there are no objections, there are late resolutions A through C will be acted upon.
I have, I wanted to invoke Rule 39 to reintroduce the local law E of 2017, probably be done at the end.
At the end, yeah. Okay, resolution A.
So resolution A is now gonna be 121, appointing director of Veteran Service Agency, Kennedy, Overacker, Marietta, Farwell, Shannon.
Second.
I heard a second. Any discussion? Roll call vote.
Frazier.
Aye.
Farwell.
Aye.
Clark.
Aye.
Stammel.
Aye.
Kennedy.
Aye.
Overacker.
Aye.
Bliss.
Aye.
Marietta.
Yes.
McCarty.
Aye.
Wilbur.
Aye.
Koenig.
Aye.
Martini. Lappin.
Aye.
Shannon.
Aye.
6,228 ayes, 0 noes, 0 abstentions. Resolution 121 is passed. You can't go on, you can't leave yet. No, I didn't mention it.
I'm still obedient. Thank you all very much.
Thank you for your order.
Resolution.
Resolution B.
Resolution B will now be 122, authorizing chair of the board to enter into purchase agreement for 13 snowplow trucks for the highway department, Overacker, McCarty, Wilbur, Farwell, Lappin.
Second.
Discussion? Hearing none, roll call vote.
Frazier.
Aye.
Farwell.
Aye.
Clark.
Aye.
Stammel.
Aye.
Kennedy.
Aye.
Overacker.
Aye.
Bliss.
Aye.
Marietta.
Yes.
McCarty.
Aye.
Wilbur.
Aye.
Koenig.
Aye.
Martini. Lappin.
Aye.
Shannon.
Aye.
6,228 ayes, 0 noes. Resolution 122 is passed.
Late resolution labeled C will now be 123, approving superintendent of highways to purchase automotive parts and equipment and approving invoices, Overacker, McCarty, Wilbur, Farwell, Lappin.
Second? Carried. Discussion? Hearing none, roll call vote.
Did I just make one comment?
Certainly.
I thought this was going to be restricted to March 31st.
Yes.
And I thought this actually was rescinded, and there was different wording to a different one.
This is the very worded one.
Oh, it is?
Yeah, it addresses some of the problems, but I think there was a date, I thought there was a date in the motion.
Invoices
to March 31st.
up to March 31st.
Oh, okay, sorry, you're right, sorry
Okay.
about that.
Can we amend that on the,
Yep.
on
Yep.
Friday? then?
So we need a motion to amend.
So moved.
Oh, I can't. amend it.
Second.
I can't.
You're on
Oh,
the-
yeah.
You can do it. So moved.
Second,
And where are we adding that?
discussion, where are we
That's
adding
what I'm
that
trying
change?
to
That should come down after the Gillies Auto Truck on a month-to-month, or
Right.
to the end, to March
March
31st.
31st.
To March 3, 31, 18, right?
Correct.
So we're saying that until March 31st, we can spend $406,000?
No, only current invoices up to March 31st.
Not to exceed.
Not
Okay, but does it say that in here?
And they're
That
approved
will-
by the
That's what we're,
committee.
sorry, Alan.
No, that it's the two,
6, divided by 12. If you wanna extrapolate that out,
That's a good idea.
34,000 times 3,
It's 102,000.
33,833 or whatever, when I did it.
All right, so this should say, the second result, taking liberty of glomming on to whoever moved to amend would be, so you only want to do this procedure for 3 months, what's in front of you, in other words? I
Correct.
guess I was thinking down the road, like what are we gonna do in April, May and June? But absolutely, that's what you did talk about, so, yeah, I'm just giving you a procedure going forward, but now we're just gonna say, that, invoices for, said purchases shall be reviewed and authorized by the Public Works Committee, and payment for same authorized in an amount not to exceed. What's the amount we're gonna put in there?
Well, if you put 31,000 in there per month, we'd still get to the same thing where we spent 80,000 in December. Because
Well, I was gonna say,
What happens is
typically
you go
your repair bills are higher
So
in
now-
winter months. than
yeah,
they are in
It might
summer
better
months.
stay the same until a new vendor is selected.
Right.
What, Dan, I'm sorry, you were.
Well, what the idea was is that because we don't have a RFP or a contract in place any longer to stay in compliance with the $20,000 rule, that each and every expenditure or invoice over $20,000 has to be approved by the board, even though it's a,
Right.
drawn out process, until we get a contract in place that we don't have to do that. So we don't have a total on the ones up to 3, well, you wouldn't because it's not March 31st yet.
We only have January,
So maybe it's
just over
like,
60,000, I think.
In January alone?
Ed was saying, maybe extrapolate it out and give it 4 months worth, hopefully would cover 3 months worth of bills.
Yeah, because typically, winter time, you have
Right.
higher bills,
You have
because
higher
the trucks
bills.
are out there working.
And even so, I mean, at least that would put us within a 30-day range of bills that we get.
Right.
Okay. So then, we're not authorizing any process going forward, we're just trying to deal with what is right at the
Correct.
end. Okay,
Right.
I'm sorry about that,
It's all right.
So is everyone comfortable with a $150,000 limit?
No?
Not for 3 months, if this bill, this January was 60,000.
You got all those new vehicles.
You got February, March.
Yeah, but the point is, I mean, let's say we get to March and we don't have enough. We're still within 30 days of paying the bill.
Yep, yep.
So, I mean, it's not like we're 90 days out
Right,
from
the
paying the bill.
April meeting.
where we are now.
Right.
Okay. So the total amount that's authorized is not to exceed 150, is that what everyone wants? Okay.
So worst case scenario, if we have a bill in March that exceeds that, we can come back and revisit it
In April?
in April.
within 30
Right.
days.
Okay, so then is there an anticipation that we are gonna have a new vendor by the end of March? Is that
That is the goal.
really happening?
Well, not so much, well,
vendor.
yeah,
Okay.
to revisit the RFP and to, part of Public Works' next meeting is going to be address the RFP and what potential, if we do get a new parts vendor.
And Gillies could win the bid again.
Gillies could still win the
Okay,
bid.
right.
So
Correct.
a vendor,
A vendor,
Right,
could be
right.
the same, could be no.
Right, exactly, okay, got it.
So could I suggest some wording then for the second resolve? To say that until new vendors are selected, invoices for said purchases shall be reviewed and authorized by the Public Works Committee and payment for same, so that's all just as you have, in an amount not to exceed $150,000 is approved.
Through March 31st.
Through March 31st, 2018, yes, Dan, thank you. That's somewhat awkwardly worded, but. Right.
Everyone comfortable comfortable with that?
I'm good with that.
So we need, involves money obviously, so we need a roll call vote on the amendment.
Motion. Oh, you did the motion.
I don't think anybody in the committee
I thought we had
motioned that,
motion.
right?
Yeah, actually, no one moved for that, it was me.
I think I motioned it.
Yeah.
Yeah, we had-
Yeah.
Did they do it?
Yes.
Yeah, they did that. Danny did.
But Danny's on the committee.
Danny's on the committee, so he
Can't
can't.
do it.
Somebody else needs a second.
I
I'll
did.
second it.
I'll second. Okay.
So Clark, second Martine.
Frazier? Farwell?
Aye.
Clark? Stammel?
Aye.
Kennedy?
Aye.
Overecker?
Aye.
Bliss?
Aye.
Marietta?
Yes.
McCarty?
Aye.
Wilbur?
Aye.
Koenig?
Aye.
Martini?
Aye.
Lappin?
Aye.
Shannon?
Aye.
6,228 ayes, 0 noes. Resolution 123A amendment is passed. Now we need a motion, we don't need a motion, roll call vote on the, as amended.
So moved.
Wait, you're not doing roll call on that?
Right.
Frazier?
Aye.
Farwell?
Aye.
Clark?
Aye.
Stammel?
Aye.
Kennedy?
Aye.
Overecker?
Aye.
Bliss?
Aye.
Marietta?
Yes.
McCarty? Wilbur?
Aye.
Koenig?
Aye.
Martini?
Aye.
Lappin?
Aye.
Shannon?
Aye.
6,228 ayes, 0 noes. Resolution 123 is passed. I'd like to thank Ellen and Carol and Jen for all the research they did on the fly there to get that information to us. We still, now that's there, so now we're on to motion from the floor.
I would like to make a motion from the floor, under Rule 39 of the Rules of Order. I hereby move to call local law E of 2017 regarding the property assessed clean energy or PACE program from the table for a vote by the board.
Second.
Discussion? We had one from previously, because it was tabled.
Yeah, I know, but I don't.
No, we have one for now, is it on the back of your packet? Or no? Is it there?
No. The old one.
Melanie definitely has copies of some. Yeah.
I got a question.
Sure.
Did we get a written statement from the controller's office about the side effects of this?
No, we did not. What happened was, Dan Kroll, the previous treasurer, spoke to a person at the comptroller's office, and then I called and spoke to one of the staff attorneys. And they will not give us a written authorization saying that this will not impact the tax cap. We are still working on getting back to that person who we can't seem to find again, but to send just like a confirming email, so I have not done that. But two things for the board to know as you vote on this is, number one, so the thought of this, the circumstances under which this would possibly impact the tax cap are somewhat remote. All these other things have to happen before the county would actually have to come in and actually pay for it, because there's all these other protections in the law. And I did also speak to two of my colleagues in other counties who have passed these already, and they went through the same process, and they felt at the end of the day that this is really okay, and that it's not going to impact the tax cap. And I think 17 other counties, they are.
16 other counties and several towns. So
Have-
it's like well over 20 municipalities have adopted it successfully.
Right.
And then that'd make it even that much more unlikely that it would affect the tax cap retroactively. But because that would be arbitrary, because that PACE enabling legislation was reviewed in state committee and then passed into law in 2009, so it would have had to be now, almost 10 years later.
Right, and we're passing legislation that started with the state legislature as opposed to starting with us. So that's my report, and they are not gonna give us any written statement. I mean, I don't know why they won't, I really don't think that's right, but
Never will.
that's where we are.
That's the state. Yeah, I was just, yes, Gary.
Yeah, you mentioned that there's a whole long list of things that have to go on before this very, very remote possibility of it affecting our tax. And two of those things in the way are funds that are specifically designed to make counties whole in that particular case.
Right. So that's one of the reasons why I feel comfortable with you all going forward to vote for it, if that's what you wish to do.
And this has been, a lot of research has been done on this by Alan, by you, by Karen Sullivan, by Dan Sullivan with the Mohawk Valley Economic Development District, myself for the election, and, we've looked at other states in California. They've had no defaults in their, a much larger state than we are. There's been no defaults in New York for the commercial PACE. There's no implication for residential because New York State does not participate in residential PACE, it's only commercial. And then the analysis that has to go into the Energy Improvement Corporation approving an application for PACE financing is very rigorous. And it's even more unlikely that they would approve somebody who had even the remotest risk of defaulting.
Yeah, I think it's a good program, and I was prepared to vote for it last fall, and I'm prepared to vote for it today. Any further discussion?
Can we make a caveat on there that should tomorrow New York State decide to open this up to residential, that we would not be bound by that? Because there's a lot of research out there where people, yeah, and there's truth in lending, that they're not bound by it, and people are signing on for 8 and 9%. It becomes the first lien on their property, and they lose their property, and there's no way to.
I mean, that would be fine. I mean, they would have to go through a new rulemaking process to even start that anyway, and there'd be time for public comment, and chances are, NYSERD has no intention of doing that, I don't think.
So the only thing I have to say to that is when we first looked into this, they were pretty insistent that the law be consistent with their template, because that's how they process these. So I'd have to look into that, whether we could add that onto the end of it. I don't feel comfortable adding that without talking to them.
Could we,
But you could rescind the law
I was just gonna say,
if it came to be that they wanted to cover residential, number one, and number two, if looking at the law as it exists now, it would even permit that. And I haven't looked at this law with that idea in mind. I mean, I would have to look at it. So that's.
Andrew?
I was just looking over the previous documents that we had looked at in the past in SWEC, and I was just trying to find if there was, what the specific language was for, the whole thing I remember about, what Dan Sullivan had said from the very beginning is that we could design the actual program criteria. I mean, if we wanted to restrict the amount of money that would be loaned, we could do that. I mean, it seems like once we start moving forward, we could start kind of maybe putting a little bit more of that, maybe that's where we bar residential properties.
Right, yeah, that makes, right. That's, it's been a while, right. When we first had the discussions about it, there was a concern that we had local issues that we wanted to make sure were taken care of under this. And they made it absolutely clear that when we pass the local law, we can't change any of that, because that's what's authorized. But we were allowed to establish certain criteria of who could be part of the program, and that was where we would put in those restrictions. So you would have that option, and then you can always rescind it. I mean, if it becomes, to the
So we
point.
can put an option in there that says commercial.
Right, in the, I don't wanna call it, it's almost like an application process. If someone wants to be part of the program, it's my understanding they have to meet certain criteria and that we can set some of those criteria. not all of them, there's some that are required by the state and we can't change them, but my understanding is we could ask them, so.
Personally, I don't think the county should be in financial business, I mean, so I'm not gonna vote for this.
And then, if I can add something that Karen Sullivan had mentioned, that the actual purchasing of the electric vehicle to put us over the fourth action step for the Clean Energy Community Program won't take place until May. So if we adopt PACE today, that would act as our fourth action step and make us eligible for the $250,000 of clean energy community funding. And then the electric vehicle would be the fifth. And then unofficially, NYSERDA is also considering being more favorable to communities that go above and beyond 4 action steps. The more you do, the more favorable you'll be looked upon for future funding applications. So there's an added benefit, and then as we've seen from the letter from Revolution Solar, they've already heard from several businesses who are interested in participating in this program. And Keith's point, the Energy Improvement Corporation, which is a separate economic development entity under New York State, would be acting on our behalf. The county would be kind of second order from this.
And also just to address Keith's point a little, I had a similar concern when I first learned about the PACE program. My question was, well, why wouldn't it just go completely through a budget? What is the reason to be putting it through taxes? And the answer I got was that this financing is financing that goes with a building, not so much with the individual. And so it gets passed on if the building gets sold, and that's why it's structured the way it is through property taxes. And once I heard that, I felt confident to adopt the law.
I thought one of the issues was that they had trouble selling buildings that were in that because people didn't want to take on what they thought was a predatory rate that someone hadn't paid it off yet. They didn't want to take it off.
So who actually ends up, excuse me, who's liable for these things? I mean, far as if we put them on a building and the building burns down, I mean, say something happens in the middle of the loan, you know, and it's gone, who makes up to pay off that loan?
That's the issue with
The county.
The county is the one,
And that's
with-
why-
if there were defaults in some reason.
The state has those
But I
two
would-
funds, though.
Yeah,
so
the
they-
state has funds
Yeah.
to make you whole, so those state funds.
Well,
would
you know
have
how
to
the
be
state likes to pay their funds.
And then it wouldn't be.
Or they cut them out the
And
next
people,
And then PACE, under the NYSERDA's guidance document, it wouldn't be the whole cost of the building that we'd be on the hook for. The PACE financing is only available for up to 10% of the value of the property, so it's not as much as one would think. And then, you know, like I said before, in multiple states, there's been no history of these kind of acts of God or defaults occurring. And, you know, for some other states that have had it a lot longer than we have. So.
Well, maybe part of our criteria is to make sure they're not in a flood zone, things like
Yeah,
that.
I mean, that minimize risk.
I was just gonna ask, and I know it'll be difficult on the insurance end of it to track, but can we put that in there as part of the criteria? A, is it flood zone? B, require them to have insurance to cover it?
Sure. I mean, that's very typical of any other bank loan that you would get.
Well,
You have
they're
to have
supposed
insurance
to,
up to a
yes,
certain
there's
value.
codes in place for
Put
it,
that
they're
in.
supposed to have an engineer design. Particularly where it's commercial building.
That criteria to be built by which committee?
Committee led by the chair.
Coming our way.
Which committee?
I'm gonna say, please don't
Comes
say
our way, we
so.
can handle it.
It originally came out of what committee?
Swag.
Swag.
Oh, it came out of admin.
Oh, this one.
Oh,
That's right.
there you go, you got it anyway, dear.
Oh, thanks.
Well,
How come you can't handle it?
so be it then, that, we'll have to develop that criteria, we can approve it. But I think all those are good points, you know, environmental concerns of flood zone, requirement of insurance for the full run of the building, things like that.
And that's something, that's all the stuff that can be built in, and then once we request The next step would be to request membership with the Energy Improvement Corporation, and they would work closely with us to incorporate all the parameters and concerns that we have locally.
I'm gonna suggest you take the lead on
I'd be happy to do it.
that.
I just wanted to comment that some of these criteria that we're mentioning might already be built into the application process through NYSERDA, so we may not want to reinvent it.
Yes, there is a formal application on the Energize New York website, which I'd be happy.
Okay, any other questions or comments? We're ready for a roll call vote.
Frazier? Farwell?
Aye.
Clark? Stammel?
Aye.
Kennedy?
Aye.
Overecker?
Aye.
Bliss?
Aye.
Marietta?
Yes.
McCarty?
No.
Wilbur?
Aye.
Kotnik?
Aye.
Martini?
Aye.
Lappin?
Aye.
Shannon?
Aye.
5,299 ayes, 929 noes. Resolution 124 has passed. Okay. I believe that does it for resolutions and late resolutions.
Resolution 110, we still have.
Well, by the time you're back to that,
Do you have any further
I don't know, maybe we did.
information?
Andrew's still out here.
It seems like the main issue is the budget modification was passed, but we don't know if the $80,000 is there. Is that the question?
Well, it's only $15,000 at this point that we're unsure about.
Correct. So I was gonna make a recommendation, if we could look to approve 460, which would be the 80,000 that we had talked about, moving over, and the other 15, I think we could come back and possibly address.
But don't we have to have a line that we're gonna take the
It says that
It
you're in
is,
there.
it's coming out of asphalt and stone.
That was approved in December.
That was a lesser amount, that was $60,000.
80,000.
Right, this is $84,000 now, right?
Yeah, but
That you said you have bills for.
Right,
he just
but
wants to change it to.
he wants to change it.
For the amount not to exceed 475 to the amount not to exceed 460, that would allow
Put
us
us in line with what we already.
to have our 80,000 at least moved over.
But not necessarily be able to pay the December bill.
Right, because the December bill is more than
Or you could pay a partial bill, I'm sure they'd accept 80,000 and.
Hence the reason that's what Rich said, that Alan said to go to the, add another 15 just to make
Right,
sure
we
that we
can't do
have
that
enough.
today.
But I realize that.
Yeah. Dan?
My perception is it's a just and due bill. We're gonna have to pay it one way or the other.
Correct.
Right.
But that'll give us a little bit of time
Right.
to go through the proper procedures and get that extra 4,000. We'll know exactly what it is and can make that adjustment exactly. Correct?
Well, we might take it out of 2018, I think, because if you
Yeah.
swept the money and there's no
It's
money left for
possible,
that.
it's certainly possible that that would be the case.
The upside of that is we have new trucks coming and hopefully our bills won't be that high any longer.
So out of what we have allocated this year for budgeting for parts, there may be, hopefully there'd be money left over.
There must be another line item in 2017 where you could find $15,000.
There very well could be, we just don't know
Where?
exactly where it is. Because this does say, resolve the funding for this expenditure is in the 2017 highway budget on the parks line. So it says it's in there, but we're just verifying that it actually is in there.
Okay, so we have a motion to amend, change the 475,000 to 460,000. Wait, someone want to make that motion?
I will.
Second. I'll take your pick. Any further discussion? Vote on the 110 as amendment? Amendment? Correct.
Frazier? Farwell?
Aye.
Clark? Stammel?
Aye.
Kennedy?
Aye.
Overecker?
Aye.
Bliss?
Aye.
Marietta?
Yes.
McCarty? Wilbur?
Aye.
Kotnik? Martini? Lappin?
Aye.
Shannon?
Aye.
Yes.
6,228 ayes, 0 noes. The amendment to 110 has passed. Now we vote on as amended.
Frazier?
Aye.
Barwell?
Aye.
Clark? Stammel?
Aye.
Kennedy?
Aye.
Overecker?
Aye.
Bliss?
Aye.
Marietta?
Yes.
McCarty?
I guess so.
Wilbur?
Is there a column for that?
Aye.
Pochnick? Martini? Lappin?
Aye.
Shannon?
Aye.
6,228 ayes, 0 noes. Resolution 110 is passed. I think that's the longest resolution I remember. Okay, any further leaks or resolutions from the floor? Any other business?
I wanna go into
Executive session.
Second.
We'll go to the second.
Wait, we have to
We'll
change
discuss
the
what's the purpose of the executive session.
personnel.
Well, we can't do that. Under 47F, would you like to make a motion to go into executive session to discuss the employment history of a particular person?
That's good.
Matters leading to the employment, promotion, demotion,
That's
discipline,
great.
suspension, dismissal, or removal.
I would
of
ask
a
we
particular
invite
person.
our county attorney in with us.
I would think so.
I'll second that motion.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? You guys, that was a very unenthusiastic aye.
We don't take
Hey, you're-